Earth below me, sky above me, fire within me. Brought to you by UPRN Network. I'm Trish Mo, and this is The Missing Piece. Good evening, everyone. It is Monday, July 18th, and this is The Missing Piece. I'm your host, Trish Mo, and we're broadcasting live from out of New Orleans, 105.3 FM and United Public Radio Network. Man, it doesn't feel like Monday. I have the man, the myth, the legend, Joe Montaldo. It's been a while. He's never been on my show, so I'm excited about this. And we always get to talking about anything and everything. So we kind of go off the
deep in might be a good way to go with that.
Yeah.
If you could hear some of the conversations Trish and I have had, like when she was still hosting on the other show, whatever it was called. Oh, Chasing Prophecy. Sorry, don't hurt me, Jenny. We had long conversations. We were half an hour, an hour. That's when I realized, was a couple of weeks in. I said, "Man, shit, this girl could definitely host on her own. She don't need to be over here. She needs her own show, man." I mean, seriously, if you can keep a conversation with me for 2 hours, you're doing a damn good job. Most people are like, "Shut up, Joe. Let me talk at least." See, she could actually get in there and talk. See, people, if you know how to talk, you can get in there. See how that works. But thanks for having me on. I've been wanting to come on. I've been wanting to bring you on mine and get to, just to chat. God knows where we'll end up talking tonight. I always love chatting with you because we never know where we're going to go.
Oh,
and sorry, guys, y'all didn't get to hear the promos because some dumb producer guy forgot to hit the go live button. So we got to do 3 at the bottom and 2 at the top. Sorry. Hey, what I can say, I got to get used to doing. I was just telling Trish, these damn hosts are going to get themselves in trouble with these promos and let a producer go get himself in trouble first day. And what we're doing is, don't forget podcast awards. There's 5 shows up for the awards. You can find them all on the websites. Go over there and vote. You'll hear the promos later in the show, but go vote. You know I don't want to lose. If you don't want to hear me bitching, think about this. I have 17 live shows and 35 syndicate shows. I could get on everyone and bitch because I lost. Is that what y'all really want to hear for the next year until next year? Is that really where y'all want to go with this? Let's just be honest, people. Let's get out there and go vote. Look, Trish will be up next year. You'll be able to vote for Trish next year. Yes, she wasn't up early enough this year. We weren't in. It happened too soon this year. But hey, it's the way it goes. But it's good. I mean, we have good shows up. Writers of the Future's up. I'm up with The Sensualist and UF on the cover. The girls are up from the Outer Realm. Oh my God, the Demon Women, they're up. And then, of course, we have Chase and Price. They're the Demon Women. Shh. I can't ever let me hear me talk nice about them because I'll never hear the end of it. So, and if anybody knows Michelle DeRoche, who is the host of the Outer Realm along with Amelia, Michelle's the station manager, actually. Yes, she does all the hard work now. And then bitches at me about it. Damn, I'm like, see, no, I'm just kidding. Michelle, if you live there, I'm just kidding. See how easy it is to get yourself in trouble in radio, guys. I was going to
say, you're going to get yourself in trouble. I don't even
It doesn't take long. It doesn't take long. No, but I've been having a lot of fun. I was talking to you that, stopped. There've been a lot of weirdnesses going on, weird stuff. Like in my house. Now, somebody other, you got a ghost. So I was talking about this online a couple of days ago. So Linda goes by, she walks by. We got 3 bedrooms, and the front bedroom's a small one. It's a guest bedroom in the front of the house next to the living room. So the light's on and the fan's on. Well, we go in this room like once a month if we're lucky. And I'm like, well, that's weird. So she turns it off. In the back, messing with the dogs, doing something. I look back and the freaking light's back on. I'm like, what the hell? So I go turn the light off. No light's been off. So then I'm coming in and my front door just opens. Now it's got a deadbolt on it. So I'm not exactly sure how it just opened. But it opened, then it closed, and then it locked. Because you can hear it when the deadbolt goes. It goes clunk. I was like, oh, okay. So I actually walked in the bedroom and got Martha, which is my 9mm pistol, and said, anybody visiting, let me warn you now, you could die. It could be a bad scene. But there was nothing there. And then there's been weird sounds, weird things. So I would think it was ghosties. But so people, if you understand, before anybody starts writing to us and tells us it's ghosties, my house is on Pylands. I live on the Gulf Coast. And literally there is at least a foot of salt underneath my house in the ground. So about every 2 years that we get inundated with water. So for Zeta, there was actually 9 foot of the Gulf of Mexico under my house for a full day. So you can imagine how much salt was deposited into the dirt. 2 years
Wow.
earlier, 2 years earlier, there was another storm. But since I've lived here for 8 years, we've had 4 storms. The first one we had a foot and a half water. The second was 2 foot of water. The third was 4 foot of water. The last was 9 foot of water. Yeah, getting a little worse every year there, I'm thinking, but still. None got in my house, and my house is about 10, 11 feet off the ground, but still, it's weird to
But
take a step down your step
salt.
and look under your house and watch the water go shh under your house. And then just leaves all that salt. And then we're surrounded by salt water, so it's kind of hard for. I guess you could carry something in with you, maybe bring it in a car or something, but I don't know. I don't know why it would stay here. It'd be miserable. I mean, the
Well,
amount of
but
salt
that's what I
around
was
the
going to say.
properties.
Salt, though, I've seen a pattern in this. Like it's a shift in the way it seems that, especially like witches obviously use salt for everything,
Mhm.
protection and stuff. But
Protected.
the reason I don't think that salt's supposed to draw out, it's like if you use salt to I had stained my hands with henna paint, for example, and I used a salt rock, and it completely just you wash your hands with it, it gets it out, right? Which so it's the same with like spirits or anything traditionally. But I was just thinking about this when you're talking about it being under your house. Do you think, in combination with other elements, because salt can be used as like an electromagnetic, the ions, right? It's kind of like in your body. If you don't
Yeah.
have iodized salt, then it causes a deficiency. So because it changes your electromagnetic makeup. Do you think it does the same thing, it has the same effect with like even spirits or interdimensional beings?
Well, I mean, most of the time, salt, as far as ghosties and demons and all go, it's just supposed to burn whatever touches it.
Right.
So when they touch it, it's supposed to be painful to them. That's why so many witches and so many other people use it, tarots and all use it to surround themselves, to protect themselves. Because and this is supposed people before he starts writing into us. Supposedly, demons and ghosts won't go over salt because it will burn them, and if they get too close, it could actually draw them into salt, just like drying out. How you put it on a skin to dry it out, it has the same effect. It could. Also, I am surrounded by salt water, so you know spirits aren't supposed to be able to cross water because the water can carry them away. Or this is salt water with a current. So I don't know. I mean, I guess I could hover it over. There's some pretty wide bodies of water around me, so I'm not feeling. Plus, the Gulf of Mexico is only 100 yards from my house. You don't really hear much of ghost activity along the Gulf Coast, probably for a couple of reasons. One, houses get wiped out every periodically, but there are 200-year-old plantations that are still here that have survived all these, from Betsy to Camille to even Katrina, that have survived all these major storms. And they're still here. But it seems like if there was activity, it seems to go away for a long period of time before it comes back, like Beauvoir Manor, the home of the Confederacy. A lot of people go work it because they say it's haunted as all hell. I could kind of go for it, but I know for like Katrina, the damn thing was under 22 feet of salt water. I mean, the whole thing was under salt water. I mean,
Right.
every piece and touch of it was in salt water. So I'm kind of thinking that maybe, maybe not. And it would be one thing if it was just a little bit and it was only for a little bit of time, but this is for days on end. I mean, I think the water stayed inland for 3 days. That's a lot of
Mm.
salt on a lot of things. I just, if you're a demon or ghost, and it seems like even the church uses salt, so there must be something to it. But I'm not saying that could stop. I mean, it could come in on me as an attachment. It could come in on my car because my house, underneath my house, is paved. So around my house is grass and salt, but directly underneath my house is pavement because underneath the house is paved. So, I mean, if it
Okay.
got in the car and got out, it could get in and maybe go up the stairs or something. It's not beyond the realm of possibility. I just don't know why it would feel comfortable here to want to stay. One, I mean, the house is high activity for other things to start off with, so I don't think it would feel comfortable here. Not that we haven't lived on places on the coast before that have had. We had one house on the beach, no less, but it was old. It was actually a apartment complex. It was an older complex. You'd see this every now and then. You'd see a hand, just a black hand on the door. just a shadow of a hand on the door, and then it would kind of go up and just disappear. And then, okay, weird. Another weird thing in that same house. We're driving home one day. Somebody let out a set of white doves. They followed us 14 miles to our house and landed at our doorstep.
That's
Accident.
interesting. So
I mean, it's
a
just
few
weird
months
shit.
ago, there were two. My kids weren't here at all. They hadn't been for a few days. I left home. I come back. I might have sent you these pictures actually. Um, there were two handprints on my wall. They were like glowing. Even when I turned on the light, they was like they were glowing. And I'm like,
The
what
fuck?
the
Oh, beep beep. Sorry, beep beep
and
beep.
so yeah, so I was like, oh shit. And and around that same time, that's well, I guess for spirits, that's what people would consider like a wraith that's looking for their body or whatever, if their grave's been moved. Um, but that happened around the same time
Oh,
that we
fucking
had
graves.
horrible, it was like tornado season, it was when we had all those storms. So it was raining every single day. And I thought that was interesting that all of a sudden there's these handprints and just out of nowhere.
It's yeah,
Because my
yeah.
house usually, I mean, yeah, I have spirits around me all the time for the most part,
That
but
that could have been a
not
drop
stuff like
off or a
that in
pick
my
up.
house.
See that when I hear stuff like that, I instantly think of drop offs or
Hmm.
pickups. When they're dropping you off and picking you up, like when they were setting you down, one of them might have put their hand against the wall as they were moving to get resituated. Just all because we find a lot of things like that we would consider to be when an alien came in and dropped you off or picked you up. Whoever just sent me that, yes, aliens are real. What are you talking about? No, well, okay, real quick, but I don't want to get barred down on this, but real quick. All right, let's look at this from a different point of view because I can already tell you're kind of a religious individual. I can tell by the text. Yes, I'm smart, ain't I? So let's say that God created us, and let's just say God created the universe. Okay, whatever you want to consider God to be, He, it, or she created the universe because I don't put no connotations on God. So now you're saying, I just what you wrote to me, that aliens aren't real because God didn't create them or couldn't create them, is what you actually said. So let me get this straight. Your little lonely human ass just now said what God could or could not do. You're going to hell. You know that, right? If you believe in God, you're now going to hell. You just committed a sin. You just questioned the Almighty and what He, it, or she could do. See, I would never put limitations on the Creator because I figured if the Creator could create all of this, have you seen the new Jack Webb telescope pictures? If it, he, she, or it could create all of this, I'm sure it could manage to create a few other species along the way, which some of possibly, oh shit, could be older than us. Could that? I mean, let's be honest. The universe is 14 billion years old. If you want to get technical, it's 13.9885 billion years old. Okay, before anybody wants to correct me, but yes, it's 14 billion years old. I just think it's nervy when people put limitations on God. I'm just saying.
Well,
I would
also,
not do that.
I have something to add to that. Most of the extraterrestrials that I've communicated with, anyways, or been in contact with, um, 100% also believe in a higher power, whatever they might call that, um, or some type of creator, obviously. So you're right. For so even
I, I
most
just I
most
just
aliens.
always I always thought it was just a little nervy for people to put limitations on the creator. I mean, I wouldn't do it. I mean, hell, I'm in enough trouble with the creator as it is. I don't think I should be going around limiting he, she, or it. Yes, I know I aggravate you when I say he, she, or it, but hey, look, I haven't met God. I don't know if God's a he or a she or something else. It may be, omnisectional. I really don't know. I don't know. Look,
You
I have
can't
not met
assume
God.
gender.
And a lot of what I think falls into religion today, I think it just has to do with the extraterrestrials. I don't really think it had anything to do with the creator. Because let's be honest, people. Let's say there is an almighty creator. And it created the universe. I mean, this big, vast universe, the multiverse, because now we know there's more than just a universe. There's a freaking multiverse. So this omnipotent super being beyond any other being creates all of this. So let me ask you something. Bobby, do you really think this omnipotent super being knows who the hell you are or even cares for that matter? It's not that it couldn't be compassionate and loving and empathetic. It's just there's so much. I mean, do you realize there are probably hundreds of Googles of trillions of beings out there? I mean, we don't even have a number for it. And yes, so oh wait, so you're telling me oh there's a bunch of guns that you can't have both ways. Get the hell out of here
So
with that crap.
somebody put this into such a simple perspective for me when I was little, and I was watching, people used to have ant farms, and in an ant farm, there's somebody that has a really big one, there'd be like thousands of ants, right? Well, technically, as the caretaker of the ant farm, I don't know every single ant. Like, when I was little, I didn't know, because as a kid, you name all your little whatever pets, but no, once they multiplied that much, I couldn't tell this ant from that ant. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, it was so.
Well,
So it's
that's a
like
good
that's
way of
a
saying it.
really good um perspective, I guess, for the
Yeah,
universe.
it is because the ant, yeah,
I mean, I
and
cared
well,
about the ants. I wanted to keep them alive, but I didn't know all their names.
yes, and they didn't even think about us. They just went on with their little lives and seeing these little faces every once in a while, and said,
Yeah.
"What? Oh, go on. They're not worried about you." That's the problem with everything today. It's so much more than even we want to admit to, and it's just and people say I get friends that tell me all the time, "Well, what's the use if it's just all of this?" I say, "Well, you don't know what the use is. That's the point." You don't know if you or your son or your grandson or your granddaughter, your great granddaughter, who it might be curing cancer or going to colonize places or lead an off world colony. You just don't know who it is. So you can't quit because you just don't know. Then I said, maybe that's part of the sneakiness of the universe. You just don't know. It's the universe's way of not playing fair. Look,
Well, it's the
I
same
won't
with
give up till they put me in a box, okay? But
it's the same with it doesn't matter how big you are in the universe either, because we've learned just on Earth through pandemics and such, that even the smallest bacteria or living, whatever, can make a really big impact on the Earth
yes,
and the environment and
as
everything
we've
else. So,
as the whole world has just found out the hard way.
yes.
Yeah. Well, no, people. I mean, if you've been involved in anything to do with the last viruses that's been crossing our planet, you'll know what we're talking about. It's just a little bitty nothing, and look what it's done. I mean, look how many people it's killed. Look how many places, how much it's damaged. Look how much it's ruined the economy. And I mean, you can't even see the thing without a microscope.
Hmm.
And look
And
how much
it's
damage.
it's it's almost become, um things like that mutate. Even if, people could say it was lab created, what, okay, maybe so, whatever. But I guarantee they did not predict its evolution, much
No,
like,
unless it was
like
created,
anything
they
else.
didn't. Yeah,
Well,
it's
even if it was created, you know what I mean? Because it started evolving and mutating on its own. So,
it, yes, and it mutated a lot since the very first strain. And that's the thing, Peter. That's why we always talk about when we're doing exploration on other worlds. You got to be careful because if we bring something back that we don't have a immunity to, it could wipe out the planet long before, or maybe not completely wipe it out, but wipe it out enough that we'd be going backwards for a while. It doesn't
oh
take
yeah,
much. I mean, COVID went around through and infected a third of the planet pretty quickly. This could be something much more contagious because, in some ways or forms, humans have some, immunity to some things like, SARS virus and colds and stuff like that. We have a little bit to it anyway. Um, and there were some people did have natural immunity, but to something that came from Mars, I don't think so. I think it'd just wipe out most of the species until some lucky bastard happened to have
unless
immunity.
I was gonna say,
Unless they're
unless you were already from
unless they're a
Mars.
contactee. Yes, if you're a contactee, you probably won't have to worry about it. It's the rest
But
of you poor people we're talking about. The other 6.7 billion of y'all. Yes, people, y'all might be in a little bit of trouble.
that was my argument with the vaccination. And here we go. Like, I'm not getting into that. But as far as, like, I'm not for or against whatever, everybody has their, and I don't know any scientific, but I was thinking as far as, past, like the Spanish flu and the Black Plague and all of these things every 100 years that we keep repeating. it would be interesting to know how many, because some of us, like some people that were alive during 19, I mean, there's very few, obviously, um, during 1919 and 1920 are still alive. So it would be interesting to know if they had the Spanish flu back then and survived, if
They might
they
have.
caught COVID now, or vice versa, how many people in their family, because
Yeah, it could
of
be. It would be interesting because their family might have had a natural immunity. You never know.
that's what I mean. Because if they got it back then that means it would have followed their DNA and they would be immune to it now because they didn't have
It's
a
it.
vaccine back then.
No, actually, no. It killed a lot of
So,
people before they figured out what the
yeah.
hell was going on. It's well, that's a problem, people. We, any colonization of any new planet, even the moon, we don't know. It's like Russia was drilling deep. They were core drilling, and we were doing it ourselves, but they were deeper than we were, and they quit drilling. Rumors has it because they ran into something that was just really nasty, but it was contained. Um, may or may not be true. I don't know, but they did quit drilling. Maybe it was finances. Maybe it was over the war. Who knows for sure? But they did quit drilling, so it's interesting. And we did quit drilling as well. So you never know what you're going to find when you start drilling. It's like when they take ice core samples that date back, 30 million years or 20 million years. It's you don't know what's in there. Humans weren't walking around on a planet. Well, let me rephrase that. Humans weren't supposed to be walking around on the planet 50 or 60 million years ago. So you don't know what kind of disease may come from that would just wipe us out.
Well, that's
Uh,
what I was gonna say, and as humans, we tend to do stupid things, like, we do things before we actually think about the repercussions, like, we're like, "Ooh, a
Yes.
shiny new button, I was thinking about that because, what was Saturday, I think? Saturday or Sunday was the anniversary for the first atomic bomb test, um, and so that's another example, like, nobody, even though Einstein 100% alerted them that there would be long-term repercussions. And they're like, "Oh, let's see what it does," and somebody hit the button. So
Yeah,
we do
so
things
so
like
and you know
that
it's
a
it's
lot.
sad because so many people's families got ripped on that because there was lots of military. One of the things we learned when I first got in the Navy is they went through a lot of the history of nuclear testing and nuclear stuff because they wanted you to really understand what you could find yourself into.
Hmm.
And really, a lot of them soldiers were put within 2 miles. They never had a chance. They really, they all probably died at some form of cancer. Some might have made it longer than others, but they'd probably all died of some form of cancer. But there wasn't just them. There was lots of others that were in areas where there was testing done. People inside of houses within a mile to the blast. And then finally, somebody. Well, actually, it wasn't somebody. It was that poor lady who died from discovering plutonium. They realized how dangerous it was, and then they started
Well,
realizing even how much more dangerous it was.
and that's growing up in New Mexico, I really saw the after effects um, of these things because there were complete ghost towns where everybody had to evacuate, and I'm sure most of those people later on obviously died at a younger age and such that they were in the towns immediately following the test. And I also got to see the other side of it growing up because one of my parents' very good friends had come here from Japan, and his mom, my dad's friend, his mom was actually, she remembered her family. She told us the whole story about in the days leading up, they had flyers. She said went out, and she remembered that were warning and to evacuate, and her family, they didn't have the means to at the time, and most people back then didn't really take things like that too seriously because it had never happened before. Nobody knew what was going to happen. So, and she said she remembered um, they just grabbed what they could and running away from the town, hundreds of people, and looking back and seeing the blast. And it's crazy how, and then so there's two people getting along perfectly fine, with best friends in the same country in the same area, that had two totally different experiences, because obviously, my family was from New Mexico, theirs was from Japan, and even though it was only tested where we were at, my parents remember that too. So it's an interesting concept,
It is, and yeah, I bet you about a lot of cattle mutilations around there too.
Oh,
It's
there's
funny
everything in New
because
Mexico.
well, yeah, because New Mexico's a weird place too. I've been in a lot of places in New Mexico. I've been in several cities. Yeah, I've been to Roswell half a dozen times or so, and I was going to go this year, but I got hung up on this damn job. Well, that's sort of true. Sort of was there for a day, but doing something else. But nothing I can talk about. It's classified, people. Anyway, it's classified. Anyway, it's just classified for anybody who starts writing to me. But no, I mean, Roswell's interesting because it's Roswell. Even though it's not where all the activity happened, is Roswell. Um, um, Carlsbad's interesting because of the crystal caverns. Where was I in up north, northern New Mexico, Albuquerque? I liked Albuquerque because Albuquerque had a shitload of Christmas trees around for some reason. I mean, they were just everyday trees to them. For the rest of the country, they were Christmas trees. I'm not sure what that was about.
They're
Uh,
pine trees.
yeah, they're not like pine trees we
So
got down here. I tell you, we got pine trees in the south. They ain't the damn pine trees I've ever seen. But and then what is it? Santa Fe. I've been
y'all have
to.
like Charlie Brown Christmas trees down there. I've been in the South.
Yeah, we got blue spruce. We got all kind of actually. We have like 20. There's about well, no, actually, right now you get about 10. You get long haired pine. You can get spruce. They got a really pretty short haired. When I say short hair, short spine, about that long. They're really, and they don't lose their needles. I don't know why. For some reason, I was drawn to blame it. They're really thick, lush trees, and but that's because they grow real well at that borderline up there between it being hot and cold. They're usually growing up northern Louisiana, places Mississippi like that. They have huge Christmas tree farms up there, and if you want to go cut them yourself, they're really cheap, people. Actually, I go get a big one every year, but I also have a big one. I got a fake one that's 11 foot tall. So, and ever since I moved in this house, well, I used to get in trouble all the time because I go buy a Christmas tree and like bend on the ceiling when you bring it in. So now we got a house with a 12-foot ceiling, so I don't have to bend it on the ceiling anymore.
I have a fake tree, and then I also have I usually buy a real tree, like a potted tree, and obviously Yule traditions.
Yeah.
I will go plant it in the name of, somebody like one of my ancestors or somebody who's passed
Yeah.
away. So
So sometimes it depends what I'm into that year, but the fake ones I always see it because it's a big beautiful tree and it looks like a real tree. It's on the internet. I put it up a couple times, and then the only reason because the when I get the live ones, they're just usually generally quite a bit wider. They're like monster trees. But I'll usually burn them. I'll set it up for New Year's for them to burn on New Year's. I'll have like two of them because I like to put one in the front yard. So sometimes I'll have a live one a day. I used to have a beautiful mimosa that we just decorated and let it flap. But one of the storms got it. I got two beautiful ones in the back now though. It's they're really pretty in the spring.
it's
Ooh, man.
interesting you're talking about Christmas trees, because this week approaching, what is it, the 18th? It's almost Christmas in July.
Yeah, it
Most
is
people don't
almost
know what that
Christmas.
means because it's on the flip side. So technically, everything that's happening in, well, my life, anyways, I don't know if this happens in other people's lives, is the same as what happened around Christmas time. It would have been like, what, we're in retrograde like 2 years ago or something. So
Mhm. It's it is strange how all of that kind of flip flops over each other, swirls around each other. I've been around for a little while, so I noticed I see a lot of patterns in the world that I didn't see when I was younger, or I just didn't want to see. I ain't gonna be lying. I was kind of preoccupied with other things, so it's so a lot of times I just let things slide by, and as I got older, because I was really when I was really young, when I was in my teens and in my early 20s, I was really into certain types of gifts. Then that's when I designed my own tarot reader, my own style of reading. They even designed a deck for it. Beautiful layout. I mean, it's just a very, very accurate layout. It's a great layout for anybody, but if you're advanced, it's really good because you get a lot of information out of it. And it was just designed because we were doing a lot of reading at the time, and I wasn't getting what I was looking for. I had it in my head, but telling people information without being able to show them something doesn't always work for the individual.
No.
So, because a lot of times I didn't need the cards, but if I just told them, they wouldn't take to heed it. But if I let the cards tell them, then they were fine with it. So, but it's a great. I still have to read it. One of these days, whenever we actually get back for pay for listen again, I'll put it up as a pay for listen, a pay for view, and people can learn how to use it. Uh, when I was reading
That's
at the
the
bottom of the
devil's
teacup,
work, Joe.
it is a devil's work, but still, it's the work of many, many. If I can tell you, I'm going to tell you how this came around to being. There might be children listening. Look, people, witchcraft has some other aspects to it that we can't always readily talk about. And since Linda was studying with Gavin and Yvonne, she was learning White Wicca, very sweet little witchy girl, and I was studying with Alan Sokralov's grandson, and or great grandson actually. And yes, well, you ever heard of sex magic? That's what they were teaching us. Jesus. Shh. It's a G-rated show, people. PG-17 or something. PG, I don't know, PG something or another.
I just, the number I was trying to it's like my family and I go round and round about this because they don't share the same beliefs as I do. And I was thinking about, we've had a lot of birthdays and such in my family in the last few months. And I'm like, do you all I mentioned that when somebody was blowing out the candles on a cake. I'm like, so what do you consider this? When you make a wish and you're blowing out candles in a ritualistic type way for a birthday. Oh, Trisha, that's just I'm like, mm,
That's because they don't have a clue what they're doing. That's why.
right. Right. Careful what you wish for.
It's I tried to explain this. I think I was 17 or 18, and I was in church, and I was trying to explain to somebody in church. I still remember none popped me in the mouth for this too. I said, "Look, guys, a lot of our holidays are based on pagan holidays, and people just learn pagan. What the hell's a pagan?" And because they were going to Catholic schools or Baptist schools, none of them had really been into like public schools or anything like that. And private schools don't like to teach it either. But it was, and I still remember that nun walked right out one pop, and I just looked at her like I think I was in fourth grade maybe. I wanted to get up and just smack her ass. I still remember that. I'm thinking, oh, you're gonna burn in hell because you wanted to smack the nun, Joe. That's just God. But it's true. I mean, almost all of the major holidays today are laid over a pagan holiday. They can,
Oh,
even today, they want to argue about it. And there's no argument. I mean, you can go back. It's easy to go back all the way back. You can go all the way back to almost the Druids and
yes.
see how the solstices, how we did our solstices every year, and our
And the
vernal
only
equinoxes.
reason the Druids didn't believe in written record keeping because they
Mm,
lost trust for everything. So that's how they followed their genes and their DNA was if somebody,
yeah,
knew.
they the same way the Dogon did it through spoken word. It's
Mhm.
that's how that was kept. Yeah, there's some disadvantages to that, but there's some advantages to it as well. So
Well,
uh,
and I 100% believe that it absolutely well that's in all of us. But as far as I don't necessarily blame again, yes, you're correct. Nowadays, with the use of with libraries being open and internet and everything else, you can go and you can look up historical um, records like that. But I do blame societal programming because I mean for the most part because a lot of people most things people don't know like that is just they don't know history. It's ignorance and learning and not necessarily it's because everybody's been taught something different. But
it
again, that's
is.
by choice. Like you have a choice to believe what you are told, or you can go learn it yourself. So yes, it's kind of a double-edged
Well,
sword on
for
that
me,
part.
it was hard on me because, and I don't really talk about this story that often, but my dad died when I was 16, so I went on this. I was just pissed off at the world. Is what the problem was. I was 16. I was used to I came from a fairly wealthy family, and I was just losing my mind. So I was like, okay. I said, now we're going to see how the world really is. I spent until my son was born when I was 23. I couldn't even told you half of what I did in my life. I was just out there. I mean, I started out, so I got out of religion altogether, and then I had some weird experience which I'm assuming was a contact, but it was a weird, weird experience that for some reason I remember because I've been working with some other people who kept telling me they were having abduction, and I kept looking at them like they were stupid and they needed to get off the drugs because aliens weren't real. I know people hearing that come out of my mouth in itself is just weird, but it really, when you go back to when I started, that's how I felt about it. It just all felt. But anyway, because of that, I spent 2.5 years with a devil worship group, Satanists, is I guess what you'd call them. I was like, yeah. I spent 2 years with a dark magic group, which I was kind of like, yeah. I had this rule. I didn't want to do harm to anybody unless they were doing harm to myself or someone close to me. I didn't feel the need to do harm to anyone. These groups felt the need to do harm to people. So I was like, man, that's just not for me. I hung out with a group of necromancers for about a month before I realized they were totally whacked out of their brains. That's as nice as I can put that. Um,
Remember me insulting, we had one on chasing, it was like, I don't know, one of my second or third shows.
Sometimes, because
Ugh.
when you meet one, you're like, yeah, okay, you are whacked for sure. And then, right, I was getting ready. I had an invite to go to this really dark thing. It was I forgot what they called themselves. They were part of this vampire group, and then they invited me to come, and I was going to go. And that at a party in the French Quarter, a place called the Dungeon, I met a relative, Alistair Crawley, and I thought he was, full of what. But he verified. He actually took me a couple places only Crawley would have known. He showed me a lot of stuff. Showed me a lot of stuff that I've never seen on the web still to this day. All of it belonged to Crawley, all written in his hand. I learned a lot. And like I said, then Linda went and spent 2, 3 years with Gavin and Yvonne learning Wiccan, basically. And thanks, sweetie. And
So
then
I
we
never
just we went
learned.
forward after that. Wreaked havoc is all I can say.
I I was a little bit like nobody ever taught me anything. I've had quite a few near death experiences and stuff, and it's like after each one, I had recalled something from a past life or from ancestors or of different, I guess, branches of paganism. And then just recently, I started doing my, I do genealogy a lot of times for other people professionally, but I had never, probably because I was afraid of what I was going to learn, done my own families. And I recently started doing that, and I learned that, my, uh, well, my ancestors, a lot of them directly immigrated from um, Scotland or Ireland, obviously. And then there was also the other half were from Africa, and most of them founded a lot of the oldest communities in Louisiana. So I'm like, well, there goes, that's where the Celtic um, origin, as well as the like the voodoo, the African, and then and then I'm also, the native um, part of, so I've got all these different like, um, but I never knew that, and so I never knew where all of this knowledge would was coming from, because it wasn't something I read, it wasn't something I was taught, it wasn't something, I researched even, um, and so it was interesting that um, that's all part of my, I guess,
It
my
is,
family lines, my
I
lineage.
know, I know, I know. When I had mine done, I always thought I was a mutt because we got a lot of family on both sides. I figured your mom got this much, dad got this much, grandparents. Probably 8 or 9 different things, maybe 10 different things. Well, I found the base of my family came out of Venice, which surprised me uh, because I'm only 14% Mediterranean. So that means my family must have moved out fairly early for that to be that diluted.
Hmm.
Um, I found out that I was Irish, Scottish, Welsh, 47%. So I was walking around hanging out with the Druids, more than likely in the Vikings, because that sounds about right where I came from. The rest actually was English, and then there was a little bit of Native American in there, just enough to get my card. If I wanted to, I could get $2,000 a month from the Cherokee. Um, and there was one other thing I can't remember what it is right now, but I was just surprised because I really thought it was going to be far more than that. Shit, in today's world, that's a pure blood, man. What the hell y'all talking
Yeah.
about? No, I mean, come on. I was just, but to see how much of it was from the island itself. I mean, we're talking like 77%. Um, so, and then one of our ancestors was on the Isle of Skye for a while, and then it was just weird. I had ancestors in all the places I want to study or places I want to be. I was wondering if it was just like, was that past lives? And I was just remembering that's why I wanted to be there. It's but then Linda's family is from Sicily. So my poor son, he's a Dago, man. He's at like 44% or something.
I I I think we always go back to where we came from, whether consciously or not, because and it doesn't even have to be I was talking to Corby on my show last week. I said, a lot of my family, my ancestry came from like Scotland and Ireland and stuff. And so I live near a street named Scotland and things like that. So even though it's not the actual country, it's like a subconscious thing that follows your bloodlines for everywhere you've been. It's kind of like it's a map of your literally your DNA. It's just most people don't pay attention to that. And the reason that came about was because my mom one day, she's like, "Oh, yeah, somebody, I think it was your great grandma or great aunt or something, lived on that same street name." And I was like, that's odd. But then going further back, I realized that that specific street name was an old family name. So I think whether regardless of what country, what state, um, and especially in the U.S., because a lot of the states and the towns and everything else were the last names of families, founding families back then. So
It's strange because you can follow so much family stuff forward. What's that? Renee? Is that what your name, Renee? Oh, no, 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 no. Well, no, that's true. I did say that. I did come from a wealthy family, but from age 17 until age 30, JoJo did it all by him little self. No family money, no nothing else. Can't tell you how many times I had to go sleep in a hotel or get an apartment here, move out, move here. Yes, quite a few times when I was young. I straightened up somewhere around 30. Well, I calmed down somewhere around 30. I straightened up somewhere around 30, around 40, actually.
he
Um,
still hasn't straightened up on
yeah, I
that
do
one.
still have issues. There's no doubt about that part. Any of my good friends will tell you, yeah, he's got issues. But it's fun. It's all fun. Oh, actually, let me go back because I had seen this question earlier. So no, so the reason I had said that about cattle, New Mexico and Colorado, one have a buttload of cattle to start off with. So does Kansas City and Oklahoma. But what those other two have that the other two don't, meaning New Mexico and Colorado, was a lot of nuclear testing. So I got in trouble with Miss, what was her name? Linda Moulton Howe. She was a beauty queen at one time, turned ufologist. Yes, yeah, whatever state she was in, she won Miss whatever the state was she's from. But anyway, I'm being nice. So she got mad at me because I came up with a new theory on cattle mutilations. I come up with a lot of new theories like on Betty and Barn Hill because my brain works that way. I'm a researcher with a trade and degrees. So I'm kind of like, it's just the way it works. But anyway, long story short. So I got curious one day. I'm talking to some ranchers. Matter of fact, I was out in New Mexico visiting some friends, and we talked to some ranchers about cattle mutilation. He said, "Well, all my friends like cattle get mutilation. At least he said, at least they're insured." I'm like, I looked at him like, "What do you mean, at least they're insured?" He said, "Yeah,
Mhm.
everybody I know's cattle who's been taken has been insured." And I'm like, "Really?" I said, "Well, that doesn't sound freaking alien. What does alien care if your cows are insured? I mean, what does that mean to alien whatsoever?" So I'm like, "Nah, it must just be a weird influenza." So I got on a phone, called a couple friends, and said, "Can y'all do some research for me? I need you to contact some people, some of these mutilations in other states like Nevada, Arizona, Colorado. I mean, Utah." And I said, "Let me know if you find out if these cattle mutilations had insurance." Everyone they talked to had insurance, and the body was brought back. The same parts were missing. So I called a friend of mine who's a doctor. I said, "Hey, look, tell me what. Why would you take if you were a person? Why would you take these body parts from a cow?" And I told him what they were. And he said, "Was there any blood?" I said, "No." He said, "They were vacuum pumped." I said, "Yeah, more than likely." And he said, The only thing I can think of, Joe, is that's places where certain things would absorb first, like radiation. It's where you would see it. If you were eating, grazing on grass that had radiation in or contamination, it would
Yeah.
show up in these five body parts first, these tissues and livers and stuff like that, and in the blood itself. So I was like, well, that's interesting. And so we did some more checking around. So I went out and visited some ranchers and I said, hey, can you show me what a cow was taking? He said, yeah, you got these weird sled looking things on the ground. Like there was two marks about 6 feet apart, maybe 6.5 feet apart. And they were just like two, like something had like two round things that just slid up and down on them or came down on them. It looked like sled marks from a helicopter. You know, I was in the Navy. I seen lots of helicopters. That's what it looked like. And I said, y'all seen any helicopters? He said, we've seen a couple of these black ones, but they're real quiet. And we
It
didn't
was
see any.
Krampus.
It
Just
was
kidding.
probably crap, his little bastards. And he's always hungry, so
He's got a sleigh too.
he does have a sleigh, and he's always hungry. It's but I, so I'm like, well, none of this is adding up to aliens. So the more I checked into it, the more it sounded like it was a government checking. So I found that eventually. I talked to the right people, but so what they were doing is they still do it. They go out and take these cows and they take them to places where they're insured. They can look it up real easy. This way, the guy don't even half the time they don't even report them. The sheriff said that in New Mexico where we went, he said they hardly even report them anymore because they're insured. He said the only time they report, they'll call us and say, "Hey, this happened." We'll send them a report back. We don't even go out anymore. He says it occurs that often. He said the cows are insured, so the insurance company pays the cow. Because the cow's anywhere from 3 to 10 grand, unless it's a breeder. It's even more than that.
Were these
And
dairy cows?
no, some were dairy, some were beef. To just whatever happened to
Huh.
be in the area, and that would live in there and breeding. And being that it was mostly rural climates or rougher climates, it was probably beef cows. Um, but no one could show me where. So then Linda Moulton Howe comes up with this new thing. Oh, they took the blood. I said, no. I said, a vacuum pump can drain a cow. And I said, since the 50s, we've been able to do this. I said, a
Yeah.
vacuum pump, that's how we use it. Fill air conditioners out to suck it out. Look, that's not going to work. Then she starts, well, they took the heart from inside the sac, inside the other sac. So I asked the vet about it, and the vet looked at me like, what the hell are you talking about? Are you stupid? I'm telling you. He said, well, he said, no, the heart's just like whatever animal. He said, what kind of bullshit? Who's been telling you that crap? I was like, that was it. So next time I seen her, I challenged her open. I said, look, girl, I said, I said, you've been on with this same thing for 30 years. I said, you claim to fame, and guess what? You were wrong. And I said, as soon as you admit you were wrong, we can get on with the research. So, well, she still won't, but I've done
Wait,
enough
who?
damage to it.
Well,
Who?
who said the take the heart from within the heart?
So Linda Moulton Howe said that there's a sac
She
around the
said that.
heart. Yes, and that
Oh,
they were taking it from inside the sac of the heart without cutting a hole or damaging the heart. Well, one, I couldn't verify that anywhere. No one could verify it. Look, I got a lot of friends that do research, and
but
at
I
one
don't
time we
know.
had more than 100 people looking into it.
Well, I don't know biology or anything, but here's why this is relevant, and here's why me and Joe and I's conversations go off the rails here because one, a few like fall back, my air conditioner went out in my vehicle. My vehicle's it's newer. I've only had it 2 years, and that's exactly what the mechanic said. He's like, I don't know how this could have happened. It's literally like somebody drilled inside. There's no damage on the outside. He's like, I don't even know how this could happen. So that's one, which you just said is why it's relevant. But second of all, I just posted on, I don't know, like TikTok or something. I had a peach and it was shaped like a heart, and I made a joke that it had a hole in it, like my heart, because they thought my heart had a hole in it. I have AFib and stuff, and I've had two
Yeah.
heart attacks. So how that's another question. So what you just said, what if that could happen to people too? Because there's people with holes in their heart, and there's been 3 people randomly mentioned. They're like, well, maybe you have a hole in your heart this week to me, and so what if they for what purpose would that be if they're doing that to animals and people? Like what? Although something like
For
that, I would assume would probably be more coming from the government rather than
yeah. Yeah, it's
the
definitely from the
bees.
government because, well, we couldn't figure out a reason why the aliens would take all the blood in and take those parts and then leave the cow. It didn't make any sense. I mean, if they would took it up in the ship and the ship was moving, why would you bring it right back from where you picked it up? It just didn't add up. And they
Because
could
it
have
was someone
disposed of it
else's. It
anywhere.
was something else's property.
Yeah, for the government, that's how the government would think, but an alien wouldn't think that way. An alien would just throw the damn thing over wherever it was at, throw it out in space or something. It was no reason to bring it back to the planet. It was dead. What do they care? And they got the cleanup crew. We all know about the cleanup crews for the aliens, so they would have probably came and got it anyway. So there's no reason for them to have, for the aliens to have done all of this and then left the carcass there. And what were they using the parts? Were these delicacies? Were these parts of the cow delicacies for these aliens? Or was the blood a delicacy for the aliens? I mean, we don't know. But we do know for the U.S. government, it is a way to find out if there's radiation in those areas without alerting the people around it. And that was the trick. I mean, literally, I don't think people realize how many nuclear tests were
Oh yeah,
done in the United
yeah.
States and in New Mexico and Colorado. And the ground is highly contaminated. They were underground testing. So all they're trying to do is find out if there's a problem. And if there's a problem, they can nip it in the butt or, buy a rancher out or close an area up like they did out at Skinwalker because it was contaminated. That's the whole problem with Skinwalker.
Well, and the reason
And
I was asking if it was dairy or beef, so because I've lived in both places, in the Midwest has more beef cattle, and oh, there's a baby.
it thinks it's
And
a
then
baby. It's a
the New
killer.
Mexico has a lot of, especially near Roswell, has tons of dairy farms, dairy cattle, and in a dairy cow, obviously, it's kind of like breast milk or anything. The radiation would affect that sooner, or like it's more likely to affect that
It will
than
penetrate
the
it way
blood or the
faster.
beef, and be in milk that's sent all over the country and the world for that matter.
Okay, we'll get out
Um,
of trouble. And that's the point. So this way, they're testing these things, and they now know um, that their meat's fine. You can go ahead and send it out. There's no reason to stop anything because if for some reason a bunch of cattle would get out that ended up contaminated, which would kill or mess up a lot of people, the government would be up to their eyeballs, and there was no way they could get out of it. They'd have to deal with it because it was their radiation. This is just a good way of keeping it under control without panicking the people. And I don't know why humans think we're still not checking this radiation. I mean, radiation takes anywhere from 2 to 15, well, anywhere from 2 to 100,000 years to dissipate. So I don't know why they wouldn't think we weren't monitoring this. And it was underground. It cracked fissures. It could easily leak into in the water in the underwater table, be coming out somewhere else, and easily contaminate things. So it's just an easy way to keep track of it. But ufology took this as an alien thing so much that they can't go back. They just can't. It would be, they can't admit it was wrong and there's a better theory than the one they have. And it is a better theory. It's more practical and it's more useful.
It is. But on the other hand, on the other side of that, a lot of contactees and abductees, have. So, what about the ones that have radiation from being taken? You know what I mean? Because people, all the ones that always come back, um, were exposed to radiation. So then they're radioactive. Anything your saliva, your anything like that would be radio. You'd have it's like it would be
But
almost like people with cancer treatments and such.
hmm, but how about if there's another step to that you're missing? What the hell? Sorry, hold on. I got fat finger itis tonight.
I was
Here
gonna
we
say,
go.
where'd you go?
Yeah. So how about if there's another step to that? So with Travis Walton and a few other contactees over the years, we've learned that the government or the aliens drop off the contactee to the government sometimes. It's a handoff. And we know that because there's the way aliens do things one way, government does things another way. So if I was working for the government and I was going to hypnotize you, I would use three things. I'd find a good empath or a good telepath, and I'd use sodium pentothal and sodium amylothal. So I'd get you down to this state, and then I would passively use the telepathy and a good hypnosis and change your memories to whatever I
Right.
decided to change them to. So around level 10, that's not even a big deal. So that's the way I do it. Aliens don't do it like that. First off, 90% of the time now the aliens loop your memory anyway. They just find something you trust, going to work, driving your car, painting, whatever it is that you do, something that you do a lot and you don't think about it. They'll just loop that
Hmm.
memory when they take you, and they can take you for days, hours, weeks, or months, and still you would just never know because it just loops the memory. They used to not do it that way, but because of researchers, they changed. Missing time just about completely went away now, not all the way, but a good way. About only about 5 or 10% of our cases now have missing time in them. Most of them now have some kind of weird time, steady time, gain time, forward time. It's just different.
Unless you're like me and you take screenshots of clocks and then
Well, but see, that could be other things too, because so if you're very empathic and you're very telepathic and you have just a little bit of telekinesis in you, which a few of us probably do, and you've been around the aliens a lot, you can actually, for lack of a better way in this, you can stop time for a little while. And you do this completely subconscious. It's not. I don't think anybody does it on a conscious level. But over the years, I've noticed people I've met, they'll be telling me something. I said, "Well, that that doesn't quite sound alien. That sounds more like you had control." And I've had a few of them tell me that they've used it in panic to get away from a military abduction.
oh my
That they
goodness.
just stopped it for like 8 or 9 seconds and used it to get away. Now, this is something we're just
Wow.
bringing out. I don't even think this has actually been brought out in the field. Now, you watch. Now, we
But
talked
this
about
is
this tonight. Everybody and their mama is going to be claiming this is their theory. You watch. Go ahead.
no, I wasn't going to say that's my theory, but that I was about
Not
to
you,
say
no.
before you explain that that so one of the times that one of the most traumatic experiences of my entire which all this shit's going around now in my house because I'm about to say this, of course. So, anyways, one of the most traumatic times I was taken, I there was a plane flying in the sky and there was traffic and there were people and all of a sudden everything stops. Everything besides myself and my kids and I was like everything's frozen. Why is everything frozen? And I was scared to death. I mean, this there was like, men in black type people and this was outside of a major military base as well, chasing me and everything and everything stops. I'm like that plane's on like we were the only ones moving in my entire environment. I thought that that was them doing that.
No, it was probably you. You probably panicked,
I did
and you
panic.
did it. That's what I'm saying. You did
I
it.
had no this was back when that was the first time I was very religious. I went from all of these things happening and thinking they were a religious experience to this whole 3-day uh, like basically military abduction type thing. But I didn't know that I didn't know anything. I hadn't remembered all of these things at that time in my life. And so I of course I panicked. I mean, there were giant ships in the sky and like everything stood
And
still and people chasing me for no reason. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a
no, it's just for some reason there are a few people I've met over the years that can do it, and it, like I said, it is usually pure instinct. It's just, but you know what's interesting about that? So one of the things ICAR used to do, because we're actually in the middle of, we're going to start a new organization because we're retiring ICAR, but one of the things that we used to do is we used to track abilities that contactees and abductees had, things that that they had, but they really didn't know how to use, or they hadn't really used, but they knew, like empaths. Every contactee is empathic, whether they know they are or not. It's not real hard to tell if you're another
mhm.
contactee, or if you're empathic, you know right away. A lot of them are telepathic, and some of them are strong telepaths. It's one of the reasons the government opened, I think it was in 2000 or 2001. And by the way, this isn't a classified, the program's classified, but it's not classified to find out about it. So the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Air Force ended their remote viewing programs, and it went in turn for telepaths. So they started recruiting and looking for telepaths. One of the reasons they do military abductions is to find telepaths. See, a lot of people think all military abductions are about finding out what the aliens are doing. Well, that's kind of hard to do. Even we have more. Think of it this way: we have more access to contactees than the government does, and we can't find that. So, and Holly, they're not really having much more luck than we are. But recruiting telepaths, on the other hand, is different, and so they can find people with abilities. Sometimes they can talk these people into using these abilities. I imagine every now and then ET gets pissed off and intervenes, just like in the movie
Yeah.
Taken. And I'm sure they do, but sometimes they may not. because it may be a contactee that's retired. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know what that means, is all right. There's a lot of contactees and abductees on the planet, but not everybody is lifelong abductees. Sometimes there comes a point if you're not going to be part of the later programs, like becoming a communicator or a keeper or something along those lines, then they retire you. Now, if you have kids or grandkids, they're going to come take them. They're just not going to take you anymore because you're no longer whatever experiments, whatever they were running is now done. And if you're not going to become part of the program forward to help them with what they're doing, then they retire you unless you're still useful for whatever they're doing. Um, but they do retire a lot of contactees. And that's why contact seems to stop after about 38, 34 to 40 for some people. That's usually where it's going to stop. But for everybody else who's actually involved or who has this ungod interest in them because they know it because they're telepathic, they keep them around much longer because they're much more useful.
I was
Mm.
gonna say, and then when it comes to, so for a while there, what I had experienced was, um I was it was like I was threatened to either go along with it as far as telepathic abilities, or they would take my kids, and so obviously that was more government.
I have to hook you up. Was it Narira Isley? It was Narira Isley and Katarina Wilson, I think, told me that. Um, and maybe it's Karina. I don't know. Anyway, I've met a lot of contactees over the years, but I've had a couple of actually a couple of them were Air Force, and they were in the Air Force, and they were told you're going to do this, you're going to do that. And a
Mhm.
couple of times they were even brought up on stage, and they used what they call super hypnosis on them.
Yeah.
And so then they did all kind of stuff. Those shows are still available, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. But they're deep archives now. We got 10,000, 12,000 archives up there, so you're going to be digging around for a while. But they are
I,
available, but it's creepy. It's kind of weird.
well, and so I 100% think that, it got to where they were abusing that power of using me for such things. And so after so long, I didn't even want to live anymore. I didn't want to, I was like, okay, if this is how you want, if this is what you want to do, and you're going to use me as a weapon, then I'll just take myself out, right? Like,
And it was because
and
of people like you is why we formed the first organization so we could find
well,
y'all.
but after something, um, it was at that time that other entities from other planets came in and started helping me, because before that I was 100% traumatized from, I had been living on military bases. I had been near it a lot in my life. I had been, yeah, grew like in New Mexico. Obviously, they're all over the place. Um, but
Yeah.
then
New
it was
Mexico, the giant
after,
landing pad. Sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
and I lived in Colorado where they're all over.
Not a
I
giant
was
landing
telling
pad.
you, one of which I haven't publicly talked about was when I lived there one time, and I was going to Grand Junction, Colorado, and it was just, I was modeling at the time. It was my makeup artist who I had never met. She was a new one, for this agency I work for, and on the way there, it was a few hour drive from Denver. On the way there, our lives about people she's like, wait a minute, like I know that person back, and we had never met. We weren't from the same places. I hadn't lived there very long. And all of a sudden, we're like 30 minutes from Grand Junction, could see the lights of the city. We were going to be, it was still dark though. It was really early in the morning because I had to check in by my contract by a certain time. And so based on our timing, we should have been there like 30, 40 minutes ahead of time, checked in the hotel before I even had to show up at my contract. And that's the last thing I remember. And all of a sudden, the next thing I knew, um, it's daylight out. We're in the middle of the desert driving. And I looked at her and I'm like, what? What? And again, this was, you know, like 17 years ago. So this was before I knew anything that I know now. And I didn't even remember this happened again until like a few years ago. And we're in the middle of the desert, don't even know where we're at. and we come to a rest area, and I get out and go look at the, there's a map, and we were halfway through Utah. And um and then after that, and it was almost noon, so we lost a good like 6 hours there, and
Mm.
ended up halfway through another state. Well, I
I
didn't know
love
until
those.
recently that that's where, there's a lot of major bases there. There's like Area 52 there.
Oh, there's all kind. Look, I tell people all the time when you're in a little four-state area up there, you are in like the heart of government secrecy, man. Between New
Yeah,
Mexico, the top of Arizona, all of most of Nevada, and part of Colorado, you are in like, oh, don't not forget Utah. You are in just like secret heaven up there. There is a buttload of stuff goes on up there because it's in the nothing can get to it. I mean, yeah, you get satellites to fly over; they can cover any of that up anytime. So there's no other way to approach it without being part of it. You're not getting in there to find out what's going on. I mean, I've talked to people at Area 51, 52, and 53 because um, Charles Hall worked out at Area 53. He was an officer. He was the weather guy is what he was. He was the weather guy. He's a meteorologist is what he was. And he's the one who turned us on the tall whites. Nobody would believe him. Nobody would talk to him. This guy had like 4 PhDs. He's brilliant, but he wrote books in a methodical way, and he'd spoken a certain way that made it hard for people to stay and listen. But and I didn't know when I first met him. I said I knew for a fact because of all the stuff and all the voice stress I've taken over the years and facial recognition and body language. I knew he believed what he was saying, but I didn't know if I believed what he was saying. That was the
right.
thing. I mean, there was no doubt that this man was 100%, him and his wife were 100% convinced this is what happened. And since he was kind of a brilliant guy, I was kind of thinking, did he just dive over the deep end one day, or did they shoot him some drugs, give him some LSD like they did back in Nam or something? And so I brought him on the show a couple of times, 6 or 7 times, actually 3 books, yeah, at least 6 times. And we talked and we talked, and over the years, every now and then somebody would call in. So finally, we ended up with 2 3 state troopers now that came forward and said that they had seen one of these tall whites, a half a dozen or so casino workers, 4 or 5 taxi cab drivers. And so it gave light. Now, by saying this, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't 100% say what he was saying was true because sometimes stories take on a life on their own. So, I mean, but 3 state troopers, well, there's two state troopers and a couple of security guards from the casino. So they just didn't look like the type that were going to lie for any reason. And it wasn't beneficial for them. They hadn't retired or anything yet. So telling us this was just kind of like, okay, because if I'd have used their names, they'd have been in a buttload of trouble. I would imagine. Same thing with the security guys, but it freaked them out so much they wanted to talk to somebody. And
Hmm.
since we had an investigation, they talked to us. And we talked, we flew out, we talked to a bunch of cab drivers, we talked to a bunch of casino workers. And what's interesting is none of these, they were just at casinos. Nobody knew each other. Nobody in all of these people we're talking about, none of them knew each other. And all were giving me the same story: freaky, weird, tall people with big sunglasses on. They were really, really tall, like almost 7 foot. The guy
Yeah.
said, what the guy told me, he said, made Ed Jordan look like he was a midget. And I was like, damn, how tall. So, and he said they were kind of cranky, grumpy looking things. Um, but they gave the same description. They were pale looking, like they hadn't been out in the sun much. One guy said kind of looked like a vampire skin or something. Um, so but still doesn't mean they exist.
Well, so another time, which was near what's been now, they think it's a vortex area in upstate New York where I used to live, which was also near a major military base. This house I lived in, it was like a townhome. So I had neighbors when I first moved in. It was just some women or whatever, and they never bothered me. But halfway through, somebody else moved in, and all of a sudden, all of this stuff started happening in my house. I mean, I have videos of my dogs like interacting with things, and it wasn't spirits, because back then obviously I was very aware that I could communicate with spirits, but I wasn't aware of other interdimensional beings. And so it got to where people wouldn't even my friends wouldn't even come over to my house because so many weird things happened. And my kids, my daughter was like 2 years old, and terrified of these things. She would, even though she couldn't really talk that much at the time, she would still point them out. And it, this was the house that had 9 stabbings throughout history at different eras in time. And one morning we were having breakfast. I had a back door and we shared the back porch. And there's this guy standing there, very tall, over 6 foot. And he had like a black hood on, like a hoodie on, and bald and very, very pale, and just standing there staring at us. I swear to God, his eyes were glowing, which now isn't odd to me because I know that happens. But so I was like, maybe it's just somebody on my back porch. No, every time no one ever saw these. I mean, it got to where my neighbors were asking me. They're like, "Do you know who lives next to you now? Like, have you ever seen them leave?" Nobody ever saw them leave. No, nobody ever saw them come or go in any way, unless it was like in the middle of the night. And they always were a black hoodie. They would even, some of my neighbors started asking because they had this window that sometimes was open in their front. You could see like a dining room table or something. My neighbors started asking me, they're like, they just sit around this table and they're like, they don't eat, they don't what. And I had this, like, I don't know, joining door that came through my attic, which the whole top of the house was redone, and that's where my room was. And I was like, there's something that I can't see. And I could see spirits, so I knew it wasn't that. I'm like, there's something I can't see coming into my room every night. And it didn't feel like, it wasn't the same presence as uh, from when I was younger and could remember like different extraterrestrials and such. It was a very um it felt more dangerous and more aggressive and more I it something that terrified the animals and kids and everything else. So I don't know, but there were like 4 or 5 of them lived right next to me for for a
Well,
very long time.
so I'm saying you just never know what's going to see. Now here it's a little different where I'm living right now because I have control. I have property around me, not as much as my partner does, but I have property around me, so it's a little bit hard. And I got water on 2 sides and land on 2 sides, so it's a little bit different here. You're just not going to walk up without being seen. Of course, my house is so quiet. I don't know if I hear you, but the damn dogs would. Them little vicious chihuahuas I got would go ape crap. But when you get into all this stuff, you never know where it's going to go, why some things happen the way they do. The weirdest shit will happen in the weirdest places at the weirdest time, and you're like, "What was this for?" I'm talking with a good friend of mine. I was hoping she'd be listening tonight, but um, we had some weird events went on. So, and she asked me, she said, "Well, how come do you think it was you?" And I just paused and like, "Well, hell if I know." Because, but then some other friends of mine just recently said, well, Joe, how many people do what you do in the field anymore? She said, MUFON's got some little funny make believe abduction thing over there, but they don't, I mean, you don't even hear anything from them. He said, nobody else is really doing it. He said, ICAR's the only one that does real abduction research. And he said, I noticed anytime y'all put out something new, 5 weeks later, somebody else is preaching it's theirs. I said, yeah, but it doesn't matter because we put it out first and we can always prove it. So it's like the blood type study. Like going back to Linda Moulton Howe, 2 years after we released it on Ancient Aliens, she came out and said it was hers. And we were on the same episode of Ancient Aliens the second time. My second or third appearance on Coast to Coast, we were on at the same time. And I'm thinking, really? I was watching and thinking, really? You got to be freaking kidding me, man. And even the director from Prometheus was like, good judge. What can I say, man? But it's like that. And so I asked a friend of mine that was seeing her, went to see her at a lecture. I said, ask her why we decided to do the counter mutilation. What was behind it? What was the funding? And she had no answer because she wasn't the one that did it. We actually started it so I could find you or you or you or you or you or you or you. Because since the majority of people who are being taken don't know they're being taken, 98% have no idea. Right. We were looking for ways that we could put out tests on different websites and stuff. And like if you went by and said, oh, I'm RH negative, I'm O negative, that's interesting. Well, look, have you ever had this happen to you since you're O negative? And it helped us to find, but it also helped people who want O negative sometimes to go take the test too and find out, hey, look, we might have a potential contacting your abductee here. and it allowed us to find a lot. Well, that's why MUFON and them never could keep up with us because we were smart. We were out hunting. We still are every day. We're always hunting contactees. And no, Daryl, it's not like Daryl Simpson's. We're not hunting them to get rid of them. We're just hunting them because we want to be part of the group. Our goal is by 2025 to break 100,000 cases. So we're at 87,005, I think, right now. So that's our goal, is to break 100,000 cases. That'll be, I think, well, it'll have taken 30 years to get to them, but still, I think it's
Do you
25 years
think
right now.
that after the release of all these, after the declassification in the recent year, by the government and other countries even and stuff, do you think that that many more will willingly come forward?
Hence, what did they actually declassify?
Right, that's true.
So, I mean, they showed us video imaging taken from jets, which is cool, but we'd already seen that from Mexico and a couple other countries. It didn't amount to anything because, okay, it looks cool.
Right.
It didn't shoot our jet down. It didn't really even interact with our jet. It just went on about its business. So, I mean, what can you get out of
But
it?
I mean, it did make people start being
Some
more
people, yes,
accepting of talking about it.
and it also made
Me,
more.
I was totally different because, like I said, I was threatened so much that I literally passed a stranger on the street who looked like a homeless man. Of course, he was probably like some sort of, I don't know, walk in or something. But he said, he just randomly told me, if no one knows you exist, then it's easier to get rid of you. And
It's
I'm
very
like,
true. That's why I went public.
because and that's exactly why I did as well, because it had gotten to where I had completely isolated myself and I was
And it's
completely afraid of everything
very
in the world.
interesting. Oh, get him, cat, get him! It's
Yeah.
look at Tails. Tails about to whack you.
I
Oh
know,
wait, she
she's
turned around.
chasing something.
They but it's interesting you said that because that's exactly what happened to me. I was around, I think it was 28, and I was into a lot of stuff at the time. And I remember I was out. I was in the quarter. I was sitting down. I'm not gonna tell you what I was doing. I was being bad. Besides drinking, and this guy came and sat down next to me, and he told me the exact same thing because
Hmm.
he said, keeping yourself hidden is an easy way for them to take you out, Mister Joe. It's just how he said it.
Yeah.
And I looked at him like, because I was loaded as all hell. I looked at him like, yeah, sure, do whatever. And he got up and he walked off, but it stayed in my damn head. It wouldn't leave me alone. So
Yeah.
first thing I did after that, I got a little, I forgot what they call them, where you set up a group where you could have weekend groups that come around. I forgot the name of the group, but you'd pay and then you could send it out to everybody that was interested on that group, and then they could come out to your house or to wherever you were do it at an
Oh, like a
office or whatever.
meetup?
Yeah, that's what it was, a meetup.
Yeah.
So we started doing that, and then a couple of years later, we were still doing that, and I was reading tarot online because a couple of friends of mine asked me to do it, so I was just doing it. I was charging to do it, and I know people. I don't do it for free. Sorry, because I'm really really good. But anyway, I was doing it online, and this guy, his name was Ariel Saint Sinclair. Okay, he said he was a direct descendant of Christ because he's a Sinclair, and that he was an alien abductee. And I had been being indulged with alien abduction shit for like 6 years now. And it was making me crazy because, a lot of these people I just thought were insane. If it wouldn't have been for some of the people I met who were way up in station in life, had lots of money, lots of power, and were telling me, for whatever reason, that they were being taken. And that's another thing. It took me a long time. It took me until my mid 30s to realize, well, why are these people out of the blue walking up and telling me this? I mean, do I have like, come tell me you're an alien written on my head or something? Do I have a tattoo on my ass that says, come tell Joe your alien abduction stuff? I mean, it was weird and it still is weird. Even today, it's
Because you're
weird.
supposed to help them, Joe.
Well, I do, but I mean, at the time I was like, these people are all effing crazy. I was just like, and then I was like, So anyway, I meet this guy online. And he's saying all this shit, and I'm like, look, dude, now you're giving the crazies a bad name. It was making me crazy. So we had a chat group on there. I forgot the name of it. We had it was just a couple of us that were made friends on Yahoo because they had cool chat rooms back then. And we had a chat room going, And he used to come in and room raid all the time with his crazy shit. So I just challenged him. I didn't know Bean from shit, so I just challenged him outright one night and just tore him all apart. And I said, "Okay, that's it. I got to find out what's really going on with all this stuff." So I probably dumped a lot of money because we had just come off of a hurricane job. So I dropped a lot of money into it, and we started researching everything we could. And then the chat room started to grow, and it became a UFO alien phenomena chat. And it was around for a couple of years. And then we moved to a place called the Pal Talk. And right then and there, I met a guy. He owns Stardust Radio. His name is, what was his name? Jeffrey. I can't remember his name. And he offered me a job hosting Wake Up USA. And I was like, dude, he said, I listen to you in chat, bro. You're great. You'd be a great host. I'm thinking, whatever, Jay, you do for radio. Get the hell out of here with your shit. And he bugged me for about a year. And then I finally took him up on an offer. And within no time at all, the show was a big success. And I was its fifth host or its sixth host. And it'd been around for a while. And I had some pretty famous hosts on it too. So I was filling some big shoes. And I just nailed it. I mean, I made friends with every ufologist there was. And just on that show, I interviewed Stan Freeman like 11 times, and then probably another 11 times on the other show on UFO Undercover. And I realized it was bad on me for doing it, but I had a platform to really get this abduction stuff out there and see what I could change and what I could find out. And I did. Talk about piss ufologists off. They blackballed me immediately. I'm not kidding you.
Yeah.
They blackballed. First off, Paula Harris wouldn't even talk to me. So she come on the show and I asked her about alien abduction, and she said her words, "That's nothing. That's just damaging the field. Let's not talk about that." And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, that's all she talks about anymore. Just so you know that. I caught up with her in Roswell at the 60th, and we managed to bury the hatchet. And a couple of years later, she came on and we talked about alien abduction again. But all of them, Richard Dolan, Peter Robbins, didn't matter who they were. Stan Friedman were anti-alien abduction. I mean, big time. I had to work my ass off. People all the time, oh, MUFON didn't do crap. MUFON didn't even form the star team until, I don't know, like 15 years after ICAR existed. I had interviewed the only chief of MUFON I haven't interviewed is the current one. I just haven't had an interest for some reason. But everybody else I've interviewed, two of them I was friends with. I actually worked for Walt Anders when I first got into the field. I was a specialist for him. So, I was with the founder there for a while. And he actually joined ICAR on air because MUFON had lost its way. His words, not mine, by the way. So then it all just kept building until one day it just exploded and there was a big organization and we were knowing shit and information was flowing out like it burnt out. It was burning out. I'm not kidding you. We were burning out 30 directors a year. Easy. And some of my good friends who were holding key positions, it was burning them. They were staying, but it was burning them out. Eventually
Yeah.
eventually it killed three of them and retired four of them. And I remember when November was running a project for me on the reptilians. And I still remember this. A good friend of mine, D, who hosted UFO Synopsis, Eye in the Sky UFO Synopsis, found out she had breast cancer. And then 6 weeks later, November calls me. She found out she got breast cancer. This is two of my hosts. Found out three of my hosts had breast cancer all at the same time. Coincidence, I'm sure. Big one. All of them were working UFO stuff. Two of them survived. D managed to make it for a couple of years, 4 years, and then she passed. And she was what as I was called as the person. Her job, honestly, was to keep me honest. That was her job. That's all her job really was. She was national director for the U.S., but her job was to keep me on the straight and narrow and not let us go off on some wild shit like all these other crazy ufology does. That was her job. And November calls me up one day. She said, Joe, I got this thing underneath my bed. I'm taking it and I'm mailing you the whole thing. I think this is what's making me sick. So she sent it to me, and instantly she started healing. And
Yep.
last I heard, she was in complete remission and was doing well. So that's good. And so was my other friend. So they made it out of it. And this was a very, very significant reptilian report we did. I actually had a couple other directors take it over and split it up to make sure. I even sent part of it to one of our Indian directors. And the stuff we learned for this was insane. And what was so cool about this, because we were doing this, we have Brazilian ICAR, it's a separate group. They did a 5,000 person study on the human type aliens for us across 3 countries down there. and it was fabulous. So we matched it against what that's 1,500 person study we had here. It was just fabulous. But see, that's what I'm saying. It was so much information coming in. It was insane. I mean, it was, and that's why it's burning people out because you were learning stuff and you were going, "Oh my god, no! Oh my god, no! Oh my, what the hell?" You know, because it was just, it
That's how
went from
my friends that's why they don't last long in my life because they get too much information.
well, but that's a good thing. Well, it's not maybe not for them, but
Not for me. People they're
I
like,
call it
you're too much, Trish. You're too much.
I call it venting significant information. But hey, some people can't handle it.
If I'm
And
blowing their mind every single conversation, just
say it's okay. You can put the pieces back when I leave. It's all right. It's like a puzzle. You know, just stick the damn things back where they go.
but
It's
it literally, that's how most people on earth live. Like the human mind, um, unless you've been like mine's calloused to such things that it's kind of like people in the military and stuff that see violence or see dead people or like EMTs or police officers or anything. It's not that they're not still sensitive to that or don't have a heart or what, but after you see it or experience so often, um, and see the reality of things, that it doesn't affect you as much. And I think that's the same with like the illnesses too. I have been given, that's another thing with just going public with stuff, because I had already been, without going public, I have had everything you can imagine in life. And they specifically told me, well, it was one time through my daughter, actually. She said in a completely different voice that sounded reptilian, maybe you want strep throat again. And I'm like, oh, oh, so that's coming from you. When I don't do what something wants, this was back then, I get an illness or I get a disease or I get whatever. And it was getting out of that mindset that was, enabled me to heal myself, obviously. But
yeah. Well,
whichever
strep's a
may,
bitch. I used to get it all the time, so I feel for you. I know what it feels like.
well, I mean, not just with strep, but they knew that that would cause my immune system to attack itself. So
Yeah,
since
because
I
it's
had Lyme
serious.
disease, um,
It's definitely serious. It's all of that stuff. But you know, it's not uncommon for contactees to have issues like that. It's weird for me because some contactees are the epitome of what I call health. I mean, they are perfect. They look fabulous. Their body's fabulous. It has no issues. They're going through life just la da 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 da. They ain't never been damn sick in a day. Lucky if they even get a cold. And it's just weird to watch them. And then there's other contactees that are somewhere in the middle, but most well, not most, but about a third, maybe even half, usually have weird health issues. I don't like to talk about it because my sister gets mad at me, but my sister used to have every weird, if it was a weird disease like geographical tongue, just cracked toes. I mean, stuff, things even
that's
the
how I
doctor
was
is, yeah,
too. Yeah,
stuff that the doctor's like, really, Steph? What? They look at my mom like, really? What? And I was not that much. I was only 7 years older than her at the time, but I was thinking, damn, and I didn't get anything, but I did get sick. I got like chicken pox and all that shit when I was a kid because we all got the shots. But and by the way, ladies and gentlemen, in case y'all didn't know this, if you're under the age, I think it's 34, 33 now. It might even be 30 now. Oh no, I'm sorry, it's going up, not down. So no, if you're under the age of like 37, you're not immune to smallpox and
yeah,
other
they've had
really yeah,
outbreaks
yeah, and
recently.
other really nasty diseases. Because remember, there's a bunch of vaccinations we quit giving. People don't realize this, but there's a bunch of vaccinations we quit giving out because, as far as we're concerned, the disease has been eradicated. So that means you have no protection. Whereas I still got protection because I'm an old bastard, but all the rest of you poor bastards don't, and it will kill you dead. It is not a nice disease. I just worry because we don't know where some of this stuff has been coming from, whether it was accidental, whether it was intentional, was it a backfire or something else. Nobody really knows. And somebody wrote to me the other day and said the aliens. Excuse me,
Hmm.
said the aliens. I'm like, why would the aliens do that? He said, well, Joe, you've talked about the great pandemic with the aliens. I said, yeah. I said, in 7 days, everybody was dead except for the contactees. That's a little bit different, my friend, than what we're talking about right now.
I
I mean,
think I know 100% that sometimes implants, I don't know where they're triggered by or by whom. I would assume that's government also can cause illnesses as well.
Well, most and that's true too. They can most implants. I, oh, I hate to use numbers on this, but I'd say 90%, 80% are government because
Right.
ET. Because
Right.
so, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't understand this, first of all, ET doesn't need an implant to know where you are.
No.
Whether they're a gray reptilian human, they keep a telepathic link. It's a low level telepathic link, and they can keep it from great distance. And I'm not talking like across some country. I'm talking about across space. So they in most contactees, if you're aware contactee or an abductee coming into being aware, a lot of times you can sense it. You'll feel it. It's almost like someone staring right from behind you, or something kind of going up the back of your neck. You can feel it. It's not hardcore, but it's enough that something is. And then if they get closer, the closer they get, the more it impacts you. So
Mhm.
um, those kind of things are actually quite often. I mean, quite frequent for contactees. They can sense them, but anyway, they keep that low level telepath, so they know where you are. And it's more than that. They can check on you if you were given a download recently. They can check on and see how that's going. They can check on quite a lot of things. It's a good way for them to keep a tab on you without because they're checking in with your mind, so they're both checking in with your subconscious and your conscious. And remember this. I always like to tease people about this. Think about the little gray who came to your house and took you out and brought you to the spaceship, okay? That gray, that 5 foot gray, maybe six, but not the little tree friends, but this 5 or 6 foot gray, he's the same gray that abducted your grandmother, your grandfather, your great grandmother, and so on, all the way back to the time this started, whether it was 10,000, 100,000, or a million years ago, it was him. So just think of it as reincarnation. He knows you in your reincarnated lives. I say he, it could have been she, but they know you in your reincarnated lives, or they just know your family so well that they've watched how it progressed forward. They know where you're going. They know who you are. It's going to be hard to outfox somebody who knows everything about you, your family, and everybody associated to your family. Um, it's crazy to even think of something that could know us that well. It's kind of freaky weird. No, it's not
No,
God. God would say
I
it's stupid
do.
humans.
I would say that one of the first times I was able to differentiate a human trying to read my mind and an alien is when, well, one, they were trying to um you can begin to feel it when something's trying to get into your mind,
Yeah.
but also they were trying to see where I was at the time. And I'm like, okay, well, obviously an alien wouldn't need to do that because they'd already know where I'm at. But second of all, they tried to get me to write down almost a map of where I was going. And they said that. They said, write it down. We can't read your mind. I'm like, well, no, obviously that's human. Like,
Yeah,
why would
so
I write it down?
thank you, Mr. Human. We're not interested in you anymore.
Right,
Uh,
and this was all during that, like, when the time stood still thing, so obviously that was coming from, um, there humans there as well, and, but I knew 100% the difference, I could feel the difference, not only that, but also by listening, clairaudience, I I'm like, "No, I'm not gonna why would I do that? You can read my mind, why do you need me to write it down?" Like,
that's
that
right.
doesn't
So
make any sense.
read it, biatch, or leave me the hell out of this.
Right.
Oh, I gotten sassy with aliens. I gotten sassy with government. I still remember I was in D.C. and who was it? Was Stephen Bissett or was it? Anyway, we were having dinner at Washington Press Club. We'd all just done lectures, and Edgar Mitchell was there, and there was two astronauts there, and a couple other big time contactees, and I can't remember the guy who was flying. He was flying after World War II, and he was in Europe when he seen this thing flying a bomber, and he was there having dinner. And he was a pretty famous guy. I don't know why I can't remember his name, but there was Edgar Mitchell and Cooper. Gordon Cooper was there, and we were all sitting there. And for me, this is hero worship because these are astronauts. So I'm just the neon pimple at the table, and we're talking, and I'm just like hero worship. And so when we start talking aliens, and I still remember he said, "Yeah, they told Neil not to come back, but I see we're not going to listen to that." And I was like, "Okay," because I had met a reporter that had interviewed Neil, who said that Neil said that the aliens warned us off. But I could never get an interview with Neil because once he became a congressman, it was like it wasn't going to happen. Especially when the station was named UFO Paranormal Radio, it's just not going to happen. But still, so I met the reporter that was pretty good, and then I met Gordon Cooper that was pretty good, and Edgar Mitchell, and they confirmed a lot of stuff for me. I watched a lot of that stuff growing up, and a lot of those Santa's here, reindeers here, all of that was UFO stuff. They talked about, because it
Yeah.
was Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo, and all three of the missions, all three of the different, because people don't realize, but there was a lot of shots that went up there. You had the Gemini missions and all the Mercury missions, and then finally all the Apollo missions, which was 17. And so they were just always up in space, always seeing something. He said a couple of times. He said, "Yeah, I'm cruising on, I'm laying back," because the capsule. I think if it was Mercury, it's a Gemini. Anyway, the capsule was like nothing. It's like 6 foot by 4 foot, and it's nothing. He said it's like being in a coffin in space. He said, I look up, and this thing's just hovering right over the top. I mean, it's huge compared to me. I'm thinking, oh shit, I'm gonna get sucked up. He said, I still don't know what it is to this day. He said, I don't want to say it's an alien craft. He said, I'm not sure what else it could have been. He said, but he said maybe it was just a big meteor that I got lucky and didn't squish me. And he wanted to just tell everybody, yes, it was this is what it was. It was definitely alien. There was no doubt about it. And then finally, I know when he got a little older, I heard them coming out more about aliens and stuff like that. And what was interesting though is I got to talk to quite a few. I think it was 16 altogether of the shuttle astronauts, and they
Oh,
were more
wow.
forthcoming. They had no qualms about talking about what they seen. Matter of fact, a couple of them gave footage. I think it was James Carter. What's his name? He made a video out of all the weird stuff that was hanging around the shuttles or following behind the shuttles. The shuttle has seen a lot of damn UFOs, and I love NASA. Oh, it was ice. So you're watching this thing. It's doing this, and NASA it's ice, and then you see the thing go. And then you see the thing go, yeah, it's ice. Really? Really, dude? How's that ice? Ice does not change course. Unless something hits it, ice is not changing course. You're thinking, oh my God. It's, who wrote that? Y'all weirdos. Um, yeah, I got to see one of I don't know which one it was, but I remember bringing the black and white TV into the classroom. Tells you how old I am. And we watched it blast off into space. No, I was a kid. No, I was a young kid. No, indeed. Not how old do you think I am, man? Who wrote that
They
shit?
showed
Jeez.
all of that in school back then. That they like there wasn't a filter on there was nobody trying to shelter kids back then because
No.
I remember even, we all gathered in like an assembly and had they wheeled in a TV during like the Gulf War and stuff. Well, like we were watching Baghdad be bombed in school.
Mhm.
And nowadays things like that would be we watched yeah, a few of the shuttle launches. They nowadays that would be unheard of. Like that would be the school would be sued and
Yeah,
everyone.
I was thinking
I,
too. It's like that school shooting. Somebody said, "Well, what'd you have done?" I said, "I would have walked in and shot the little bastards." What I would have done. I wouldn't have waited for no 45 minutes. I said, as soon as I heard
right.
pop, 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 I went and got Martha out the car and went into school and shot somebody. And they're like, really? And it proves my point so eloquently because the shooting up north today, the guy had a gun in the mall and shot the guy before he could do any more damage. The guy managed to kill 3 people, and then the guy shot it. See, people, y'all always bitch we shouldn't carry guns. If this guy wouldn't have been there with a gun, this would have been way
There
worse than what
was
it was.
also one over the weekend at a convenience store, like a gas station. There were quite a few people there, and one of the civilians, one of the citizens there, was carrying and shot. I didn't finish reading whether anyone else was injured, but I'm pretty sure they shot him before um, you know, it
Uh,
affected too many people. So
who wrote that on in my chat? No, guys, no, I carry my gun. It goes everywhere with me. It's sometimes it goes in the store. Well, I got a couple of guns, but Martha's my big 9mm with the 147 rounds in it with the big hollow points. Yeah, it goes. She goes everywhere. I go 34 round clip. You don't want to piss me off. Trust me. You're gonna think
and
you
that's the
landed
thing.
in World War III.
I'm not afraid of a person when I go in a business or an establishment or if I'm at a parade or something and there's someone standing next to me that's openly carrying or even concealed carrying. I'm not afraid of them because they're not
Well,
trying to hide it. And
it's
it's not
weird.
illegal.
No, it's
They
not.
legally acquired that weapon and they're
And
carrying
I
it.
cannot tell you how
And
many
they're
times.
probably going to protect me more than the crazy person that's trying to hide it and being all shady.
And I've had people say that I was shopping somewhere, at Target or Walmart or somewhere, and this guy came up to me and said, "Man, it's so nice. See somebody open carry." He said, "I'll keep anybody from that'll deter me." He said, "That looks like a cannon." And I went to turn around. This woman's on the side. She said, "It is so nice." And you would think, I mean, you don't know me. Look at me. And when I'm not dressed like this, I'm in a t-shirt, jeans. I can be a scary looking SOB. And they're all just like, no, no. And I tell you, I walk into gas stations with it. Shit, I actually walked in my bank with it 3 times without realizing it. But I know that the president of the bank, or the manager of the bank, so she's like, "Joe, what's that?" I said, "Oh shit, hold on, I covered it up." I said,
Yeah, I was at a parade and there were two guys that everybody started like running away from that were openly carrying, I mean legally. And I told my kids, I was like, "No, go stand by that guy."
Yeah, because well, I mean, usually you can tell if it's somebody wacky or crazy or something.
Right.
I mean, you can't
Right,
always
but I
tell, but
mean they weren't, they weren't doing anything. It's just people saw that and started scattering and I was like, get closer."
yeah, actually, most people who open carry, well, most people who commit these crimes don't open carry.
No, that's what I'm saying. They were openly doing it. So it's not
Yeah.
like they were afraid of being caught. They weren't watching their back. They weren't trying to hide anything.
What do you mean? Did I teach? Yeah, my son opens carriage. Yeah, he's got a 9 millimeters. He's got a Glock. Yeah. Oh yeah, you ever run on two of us? You'd be shit, Richard. We go shoot regular. So, hey, at least I don't carry the big guns anymore. I used to carry big ones. I used to keep a 306 in my car with a 30-30 and a 44. So no, not anymore. Well, actually, when my son was born, I got rid of all but one of my guns, and and I don't hunt anymore, so there's no reason for me to keep big ones in the house anymore. But I like my nine. I'm gonna probably and I got one of my customers got a nice was it 1936 is what they call them, the 9 millimeter Colt. So I might buy his. I mean, it's 45 Colt. I might buy it just to have a little bit more knockdown power. But no, everybody in my house can shoot. No, when I say everybody, I mean everybody. Everybody in this house can pick up a gun and shoot. Oh yeah, you'd be surprised. You
His
ain't gonna work.
dogs carry guns,
You
people.
damn right. They
We
both
got
carry
little
lit.
pea shooters.
They got both. They both got a little 22. It's a little 22 Derringer that mounts to their legs, and they stick their legs out and it shoots automatically. Pop 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 pop. I'm telling you. I say heel, and the foot comes up. Pop. I mean, I don't know if it'll kill you, but it sure hurt like shit in hell. Uh, no, the boss lady will shoot you in a heartbeat, man. Shit, she was raised with shotguns and rifles. She shoot you no problem at all. No, I mean we see that's the thing. People always tell me like today. So I'm watching New Orleans because some kids recently got shot accidentally playing with guns in the cars. Okay, first off, that's a stupid parent, is what that is. That's not a bad child. That's a stupid parent. So then they're selling it. They're giving the police department's giving away these things that you stick through your barrel of your gun and you lock.
Hmm. The safety
Okay,
lock. Yeah.
so James Brown running down the street, pop, pop, pop. I'm over there trying to get pop. I'm dead. Okay, by the time I get the thing unlocked, I'm dead. So I'm gonna tell you what Mr. Trooper told me just 2 months ago. We got stopped. He said, "You got a gun in the car?" I said, "Yeah, it's sitting over there in the door. It's not loaded." He said, "Why isn't it loaded? Why carry a gun that's not loaded?" His words, not mine. He's a state trooper because he's right. But if I know where I'm at most of the time, and I've got what you call so there's a little thing on my door. All I got to just push my gun forward and let go, and it loads it automatically. So it's pretty fast. Yeah, it's just right now. You mean right now in my car? I've got a 19 round, a 21 round, and a 34 round clip, plus a box of 100, and sitting in my glove box. Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm ready, buddy. Don't piss me off. I'm ready. And then I got another gun in the car too. I got a 380 in the back seat, just in case the other one runs out of bullets. I got another one back there. It's well, the 380 is like if there's any ladies in the back seat, they can just pull it out and start popping around. And they say, "What? Did you just try to kill my husband? Pop! You just try to kill my boyfriend? Pop! What? What? You got sassy? Pop! Yeah, what the hell?
I'll just
Actually,
zap them with my laser eyes or something, whatever
you
redheads do,
better,
I
because
suppose. Right?
them stupid. Oh, what do you call them? The voltage things don't always work. The tasers, they don't always work. I got hit with what was it? Ungodly, like 250,000 volt taser. And I looked at the guy as I reached back to pull my gun out because I was going to shoot his dumb ass. So I realized he was a cop.
Oh,
Uh,
so that's another question. Why is it the government or aliens that use uh electricity, like shock people?
that's an interesting question because
I mean, shock the shit out of them
that's
so
probably the
many
government that's
times.
using it. Yeah, that's probably the government that's using that. But it's weird because a lot of the ships have this weird familiar ozone smell when they're taking off and landing. I guess
Oh, no,
it's
that's a space smell. It's very distinct.
it just you can smell it. I mean,
Yeah.
uh,
If you
so
talk to an astronaut, because I never knew what that was, and I smelled it in my house one time, and I was like, oh shit! I took off right away because it's very, very distinct. There's nothing like it, and the astronauts, they'll say the same. They say it smells like, that's the smell when they take off their when they decompress their helmets and everything. That's the smell it brings in. And it's a weird, which is interesting because my ex-husband, when he was in Afghanistan, came home, all of his clothes smelled like that. I'm like, why would Afghanistan? Ooh. That's an interesting.
That
Oh,
is interesting.
man.
The old rumors was the whole reason we got in the Middle East was to go find a damn
Whew.
Stargate. So
Well, yeah, but that's the only other time that and so I read up on it. All these astronauts exactly described that, and they said it's a
it's weird.
space smell, and there's nothing else like it.
Yeah, we get a lot. Yeah, a lot of contactees talk about the smell of ozone and stuff like that, and sometimes you'll even hear them talk about sparking it up and stuff and things along those lines. It's strange. It's always been a little on the weird side when you talk to them because most time when you ask contact, do you smell anything? They tell you no. I don't
Mm.
smell anything. It said it's even a lack. I said, does it smell clean? They said no. It's lack of anything smell. There's nothing. No smell. It's
I guess
I'm
it would
like
depend on where they go or how they
I
go.
agree because different parts of that ship are definitely going to have smells. I mean, you might be
Right.
wherever they're doing whatever they do to you, whatever procedures they do. Yeah, it's probably odorless because it's probably some kind of system that's filtering the air through. But I know in other parts of the ships there are smells. Now, not like they are here on Earth, but and that's what the Greys were talking about. From what I understand about the reptilian ships, they can get quite stinky sometimes. Imagine a bunch of reppies walking around could be kind of rough. I know somebody's going to ask me this question. No, I do not know the hygiene of reptilians. I've had that question, believe it or not, asked to me about 100 times.
Now,
I don't know.
another thing that I thought of one time, because I had this problem my entire life, was I would randomly get a fever, no symptoms. Doctors couldn't figure it out. I went to specialists, all this stuff. And I would get, every time I was taken, I would get a fever a few days ahead of time. And then it would come down after, but there was no reason for it. I wasn't sick, I wasn't. And so I was reading about astronauts one time, and this came across my radar, of course, that and now again, this is one of those things you're going to hear everybody else talking about in a few weeks. Scientists, everything are going to be like, oh my god, now contact. But here's what happened. In order to spend any time, even astronauts, outside of this ozone, or even if people go live on Mars and such, so you don't burn up in the atmosphere, you would have to raise your body temperature in order to do that. So the fact that my body temperature was being raised a few days before I was taken every single time, um, it was like it was preparing for a journey outside of this,
you know, there's a
atmosphere.
there's a little secret on how you can tell if you've been in a weightless environment or not. So if you keep your normal height measurement, if you keep one around, because we're compressed when we're on Earth. So astronauts grow a full 2 inches when they're in space. A full 2 inches. They're 2 inches taller when they come up. It compresses back, but just a limited amount of time in space. It doesn't have to be that long. You'll probably grow a quarter to a half inch. So if you've been in, which is only in a weightless environment, but if you've been exposed to a weightless environment, you can check. If you check your measurements almost every day, you can find that. It's
Now,
weird.
does it go backwards though? Because I went from
Yeah,
five
because it'll shrink back.
seven and 3/4 in high school to, within a year, I was back to, I was 5'5",
Well, shit, they
and
must have been taking
I
you every
had
day.
and I had, I go through these patterns of like a slip disc, or like a bulging disc in my spine. And so I'm like, well shit. And even my doctor said that's like, he's like, what do you do? Because it's like your spine is literally compressing for no reason, like not out of injury or anything else, um really frequently. And like, shit, I'm being like, I'm growing and shrinking. Now, another theory though, because I actually took a video of this last week. No, it was on the 11th, 13th, I don't know. Whenever, it was literally the day before the Hadron thing collider, they did that. And I took a video of the moon, literally, like I took a picture of it, and just because it was bright that night and pretty, and there's no clouds around it, no anything. And then all of a sudden, for whatever, intuitive reason, I took a video of it when I was driving down this road. Within 2 minutes, it dropped out of the sky. And I'm like, huh, maybe that has, like, did we lose gravity for a few seconds, minutes, whatever? And then I read up on that, and if the Earth was to lose gravity, obviously the moon's not gonna move, but if the Earth lost gravity, the core would expand and heat up and cause natural disasters and weather changes and such.
Mm,
But also, some of the first symptoms to humans would be would be the compression things like inner ear things. And I had remembered in this area back in like November, maybe, myself included, my I blew my eardrum out of nowhere. All of a sudden, it was bleeding. Tons of people in this area, people I know, um, had the same thing happen, and that would actually be one um, symptom of the Earth losing gravity
could have
and
been
the
a big
moon
could have
moving.
been a big ship coming in and
But
parking
would
over
that
your ass.
cause the?
Oh
How would
yeah,
that
big one.
cause the moon to?
Well, no, could have the moon might have been something else, but the moon
Well,
might have just been. Well, no, what I mean is it might have been more of an illusion than it was actually a slip. But because of where you from the perspective
I
you were,
had it on
because
video.
but that's what I'm saying. So when you was if something big was over you sitting outside the atmosphere, something that could put force down on the area, something that may
That's
work
true.
off of a gravity drive or something along those lines, it would make it feel like that, or to even make it kind of could even glitch it. So like if you were video throwing
Oh,
it, they
right,
feel the video would actually be going through the whatever was going on, so it would make anything on the other side look different than what it actually was because you'd have to pass through. In other words, the camera view would actually have to pass through whatever the distortion was to get to the view of the moon. You wouldn't actually see it because you were inside of the distortion, whatever that was
right.
pushing down on the ground. But the camera looking outside would have seen something outside differently than would have seen from inside.
Ooh, that's like a tornado.
And it's a weird, and
Interesting.
it doesn't mean that's what it is by any means either. But it's a weird thing.
Huh.
Actually, I've been in two tornadoes, both F1, so that's why I'm still alive. And it was really a weird experience too. By the way, down here it's a weird. We don't usually get tornadoes unless it's some crazy weather or hurricanes. It's not like up where y'all live, where you just never know if Kansas, Oklahoma, freaking you like freaking tornado
Maybe,
alley up there.
like, it could snow in the morning, and we could, then all of a sudden we have thunder snow, and then a tornado drops on us, and then it's like 99 degrees. It
Yeah, it's just y'all got crazy. I mean, we got crazy weather, but at least for the most part, now we get wicked tornadoes like if we get a major because we get major thunderstorms in the evenings, but they don't usually last long. So if one does brew up, it's usually not going to last. Like we had one go down Veterans Highway one time, ripping up. It was F3, but the only thing it really destroyed was signs, and it destroyed every sign on the road. Oh, and it did bend. They had an old drive-in movie theater, so it bent the movie theater over. So that was the end of the movie theater. I mean,
Oh,
a drive-in. Yeah, it was about the last one. Somebody told me there's still a couple around. I don't know. I haven't been to a drive-in movie in a long time alone. They were dying when I was becoming a teenager, so they
well,
were on their way out.
they're, Joplin, Missouri, which is pretty close to me, they had an F5, years ago, but it was weird because even the storm chasers, it damn near dropped right on top of them. Um, and they had no idea it was coming. They had a storm they were aware of, but usually you see the eye form and all this, and they're in the rotation and everything. And this just came out of nowhere and dropped
Well,
on the
I know what you
town.
mean. If there's a video, it's probably about a year old, maybe 2 years old. It's on Facebook. We're cruising around, just cruising down the highway, and I got the camera. And you can see how it's really nasty outside in black clouds, and all of a sudden you just see the funnel just pull out, and stretch out. I'm thinking, okay, time to speed up. Yes, I started doing about 90 then just to get away from the damn thing. But we see them. I mean, I've got lots of videos over the years. I mean, it's just, and we see a lot of water spouts down here too, which are bad, but they're not as bad as tornadoes because the water weights them down some.
Right, the water spouts don't typically leave the water, right? I don't. We used to have those all the time off of like Lake Erie and Ontario because they would have bad storms, but they would never jump to land.
Well, these are cross land. Well, they won't. Actually, what they usually do down here is this little peninsula, jetty sticking out in the Gulf. when it hits that, it'll go across it. It might wreck up some stuff, but it really never makes it to the other side. It usually dissipates before it gets to
Right.
the other side. All the big stuff in the way. Oh shit! It's a quarter after. Oh, we gotta go, people.
I
You see, it's y'all's fault. We were just chatting, people, minding our own business. Hey, we're not late. I mean, we only got 1 minute 54 seconds, and we got some commercials to play for you crazies anyway. But I will be back on. I'm on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and every other Saturday. When the boss lady lets me do radio, Michelle. Yes, Michelle. Don't y'all don't be talking about Michelle. Damn people.
I adore Michelle. She's
Michelle, my baby.
amazing.
She's my buddy. She takes a good care of the station, and we got a lot of good stuff going on too, ladies and gentlemen. So don't forget. Oh, we're going to be doing. I'm working with some local friends, and we're going to be doing some local stuff. When I say local, it's going to be from like Baton Rouge, Louisiana, all the way down to like Gulf Shores of Pensacola, Alabama. So now, anybody who wants to come speak, it's free to come down and speak. Just let us know ahead of time, and we'll let you know where we're going to be because we're going to do a few of them. And then in tables and all, that'll probably be a charge for. But for the first one or two, maybe even three conferences, we're going to bring in people, let them speak for free until we can get it going enough to where we want to pay whoever we want to bring. But it's not as important to us. We're not going to be bringing in a lot of the mainstream ufology because, frankly, we've heard everything they have to say, so it's kind of a waste of time. We're going to be bringing in more people who are actually, how can I say this correctly or politely, in the chit, in the know. More abductees and contactees. And if we bring in paranormal people, it's going to be people who are really into the deep, into the different things. I might even bring a voodoo priestess on. I know a few of them. Actually, what's her name? Her boyfriend used to be on a network, Bloody Mary. Yes, y'all can come check her out. We'll ask her to come speak to. And so, I mean, it's for us, it's different because we live in a deep south. So there's a lot of spooky wooky. Savannah, Georgia's haunted as all hell. St. Augustine, old city in the United States, is haunted as all hell. New Orleans is haunted as all hell. And thanks to Katrina, it compressed all the ghosts into the old city. So it's really haunted now.
Oh, that reminds me of the Georgia, the Guidestones
Mhm.
being vandalized, what, like a week
Oh, I know. I
ago,
did.
2 weeks
Yeah, I
ago?
did hear that too. Oh, I'm glad you brought up
Yeah.
Georgia too, because I will be in Atlanta September 1st through September 5th. I will be up there for Dragon Con if anyone wants to come over and hang out. Uh, all I can tell you now, if you plan on coming out, you better book your own now, because from what I hear about Dragon Con, it's Monster Con. It takes up 5 hotels in all of downtown
What?
Atlanta.
I should
Yes.
I should go to that. That's like
Yes,
Georgia's
it's good.
my
Well, we're
old
going to be there
stomping
working
ground.
press, so yeah, we're going to be all over the place working press, and then of course I'll be out in LA next year too. People, we got a host out in LA now, so I got some help to go work press finally. Man, it's a lot of work when I go. Them people work the hell out of me. I'm like, Jesus, people. And then of course I'll be back on Wednesdays doing UFO Undercover, and then on Fridays I'm doing uh, the Centralists. Me and Mike and Jay and Linda, if we can keep from getting banned. And we got banned on YouTube twice now. Every other week they're like, all right, y'all got to get off. Y'all are bad. One week they said we were talking about COVID. I'm like, really? Michael's what he does for a living. He tracks COVID. I'm like, you're going to tell him he's wrong? I'm like, that's kind of eerie. And this past week we said the election was fixed. Nobody said anything about the election being fixed. All we said is there's been voter fraud, known voter fraud in different states. We didn't say anything about the election. I wrote him back and said, then where did we talk about the election? What are you on crack? I mean, they
They're
getting
just taking
sued.
a ticker like every time you mention something. You know how much shit we've mentioned tonight?
I
If
just
we
I don't
edited
understand
this for
it.
YouTube, it'd be like beep, 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 and we're not even
Yeah,
cussing. That would just be
yeah.
from
I've gotten to the point where YouTube. I was telling this to Michelle the other day. I said, if something don't change with YouTube, we're just gonna not even bother with them anymore. It's we'll go to one of the. There's several other video venues out there. We might just go to Vizzo or Paula or somebody else because it's gotten to where you can't really do work. I mean, we do news. We do the truth, and a lot of the stuff we talk about on a lot of the other shows is on edge stuff. And if we can't talk about edgy stuff on YouTube, why have YouTube?
yeah.
I mean, if you remember what happened to MTV. MTV was the best music place ever to be invented, and
Yeah.
now if you would die before you hear music on MTV now.
Oh, I miss it. I
I
miss
mean,
the
there's no
80s
music.
and the
There's all
90s.
kind of
Yeah.
stupid programs on there, most of which you couldn't even pay me money to watch. I want my music back. You ever remember the song? I want my MTV. I want fucking
Mhm.
MTV back.
It was like the
VH1's
difference
cool, but
between VH1 and MTV back in the day because VH1 was much stricter. You didn't see all the like taboo stuff as
that's right.
MTV had. And every time a video was banned, it was always on VH1, but MTV would
I know, and now we can't even get MTV to
still
play a
play.
damn video. I was like, just I bet a friend of mine who was at his house. He said, "Oh no, they still play videos. We watch for 3 hours, never see one video." I said, "Well,
Yeah,
call me when they play
I've
the
never
next
seen one
video."
either. I don't know where they play these, but
Yeah, maybe they should do MTV too and have all videos again. Or maybe they can't afford to pay the. I don't know. I don't know what happened, but I know it's not what it used to be. Is all I can tell y'all. Uh, what's that, Christopher? Oh, it's a teeny bopper thing. Yeah, well, I guess it is, but still, I like music. I don't think it matters what age you are. Whether you're 15
well,
or
and the fact that that's what it
150.
was like originated, it was
Yeah,
music. It was the music television network or whatever. It wasn't.
yeah.
That's what it was originally made for.
It was
Not.
great too when it first came out. It was great, man. We used to veg out, man. Okay,
Yeah.
we'd go out all night, come stumbling in 2 or 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, ripped out of our mind, flip on MTV, find us
All
all still.
summer between music videos and that we would also watch was it TNT or TBS that had Up All Night, and they would have those low budget like
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
horror films.
Yeah, they'd have horror films, they'd have sci-fi film, and then they had that
Mhm.
stupid guy who was always wanting to talk in the film while you were watching it. I was like, I was watching that one night, dude, and I said, you know what, I'm going to go find this guy and just beat him in the head with something.
Well, they had the annoying. They had like um what's that lady from? They had Gilbert Godfrey.
I remember her, but I
They
hate an accent.
had they
So
had well, they had the blonde lady. I don't remember her name, but she did the like Up All Night.
yeah, I
And I
said,
remember because we weren't supposed like our parents didn't know we were watching that because sometimes there'd be like nudity or cussing or what it was probably
yeah, whatever's on that
terrible,
thing.
whatever.
Well, cable was a neat invention. I remember my mom said, "What's cable?" I said, "Mom, we gotta have cable." She's like, "What is?" I said, "Well, we need cable." And fortunately, I mean, I just moved out when cable came to where we live, so I was like, "We're getting cable." I said, "I don't get shit if we don't have food. We're getting cable." I don't get, and
So
it was cheap back then. Now it's ridiculous.
what's crazy though is all these things that have happened in my life. I would tell my parents or talk to my parents about or whatever, and my that happen in my reality, like my actual life. And my mom, because I haven't really watched TV that much as an adult. I really don't ever watch TV. And my mom, I would tell her something that happened with like an abduction or aliens or something. And she'd be like, "That's interesting, honey. There was a black and white movie back in 1940, whatever, and that was exactly like that." And so the fact that people were making movies about this stuff back in the forever.
That's why I rewrote the Barney Hill case because it was first off he was the contactee, not Betty, and the case that was made famous is a military abduction. The
Hmm.
real abduction happened in Canada. The military abduction happened in the United States. And God, they get so mad at me for that. If Barney was still alive, he would have agreed with me. Betty never got mad at me about it, but she never wanted to talk about it. One of her regulars, what's her? I can't remember her name right now. We were pretty good friends, but she used to interview her all the time, and I said, "Boo, stop that! You're doing damage to the field." I said, "She's not the contactee, and I can prove it." And I said, "She's not the one that they." I mean, Barney was in psychological help from a young age. This guy knew colonels. I mean, he had a colonel living in his guest house, which amazed me that a guy who was a post office had a guest house. He knew 2 or 3 other colonels. He was invited. This was a mixed couple, and they were invited to the White House for dinner. Back then,
That's unheard of.
that's just unheard of. And the fact that they got no flack for being a black and white couple, especially since they both said they'd been taken by aliens, was amazing. It was amazing. So I mean, it was different. They had been watching Barney since he was a young man. They knew he had been being taken, and they found that that's why they were watching him. And when it happened, and in Canada, they waited till he came home and they zapped him as soon as he crossed the border. I mean, it's his own words. They pulled over his car. This thing landed. 4 guys in black pants, black shoes, black shirts, and black duckbill caps got out of the thing, walked down the stairs in the thing, walked over to the car. Um, They said that something at first they said something touched the car, like something. It sounded like they had shorted out the car with electricity.
Yep.
Went over there, took him out, walked him, looped their arms underneath him, walked him back across the street, walked them up the stairs. When they got in, Betty said stuff like swinging doors, like hospital doors, pull down maps, pull out drawers. That's period stuff for the 1960s and early 1970s that would have been in like a hospital or a building or something like that's period. It's not alien though. They took nail samples and urine samples and scrapings with razors. That's not alien. That is alien abduction. And then that's what pissed me off so bad because all of that was public. And then Kathleen Maldron tried to change that into something else. And so she could sell her book. I'm like, no, 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 no. That's not working for me. I didn't spend all this time investigating this case, so you can just come along and change the case. I just wasn't putting up with that. And as far as I know, I was probably the only person then or now that stands up in the field and says, "What the hell are y'all doing? Were you stupid? Come on, people, get a
Yeah.
grip." And somebody said, "Well, you just don't believe in aliens." I said, "No, I don't believe in aliens. I know they're real. That's the difference between you and I. I know they're real. You're just wondering if they're real."
Well, and I've noticed, with me, yes, I'm educated and stuff, so I could have researched all this just like anyone else. But when I talk to people, astrophysicists and UFOologists and investigators and all this that have researched it, and I'm speaking on my experiences from my own experience,
Yeah.
something that happened to me, and there'll be that extra, you've all heard similar stories before, but there'll be something different, and they're like, how could you know that, or how could you, like,
Mm-hmm.
have had
Yeah.
that happen? And it's because it actually happened. It's not like I'm
Well,
just making stuff up, and
well, for abductees or contactees, one of the criteria, and this is borderline secret, but one of the criteria is that you're usually smarter than your education. So what I mean by that is you've let's say you graduated high school, you didn't graduate high school, you got a bachelor, whatever it may be, you're smarter than whatever your level of education is for the time you're living, which is interesting, especially if you're not studying to achieve another level of education. It's weird because most contactees are usually 4 or 5 levels above what their education level is. It's not just from living life, because a lot of this information doesn't come from living life. It really only
right.
comes from learning it through books or through someone helping you or telling you. So it's weird to see it, but it's a common thing, and it's definitely part of the abduction criteria. We expect um, contactees to be have a higher education level than they are, and it doesn't matter if they're a high school dropout. If they are, then they probably got a high school level of somebody with a bachelor's.
Mhm.
It's just crazy to
I
see. It's
think
crazy to watch.
because it happens. I mean, sure, I could have gone on to get a master's or doctorate or whatever. I was actually in the middle of doing that, and it gets to a point. It's kind of like the same thing with mediums and spirits and anything. You get to a point where, what do you have to prove? Like, when that, your intelligence, your experiences, how many ghosts you've seen, how many UFOs or whatever it is. It You don't have to prove it to anybody. You get to a point where there's no need, even your education. Like, I don't need to improve my intelligence, or I don't need to prove my intelligence to anyone.
Yes,
You know what I mean? Because and most people don't listen anyway. So, like,
it
what's
doesn't
another
matter. I mean,
certificate
most
gonna
people are
matter?
prejudging anyway.
Right.
I remember this lady. So I was getting ready to go do it. Oh, the chihuahuas are alive. So I got to make it quick anyway. But I was getting ready for a lecture. And earlier that day, I was bumming around. I was in tennis shoes and some old raggedy jeans and an old raggedy T-shirt because I was messing around in the car and stuff. So this lady said, "Oh, he just looks." She said this to her friend. Why would he be here? He just looks like some bum off the street." Blah blah blah. Which that's fine. I mean, when I'm in work clothes, I look like a bum off the street, and it ain't gonna hurt my feelings. And he said she's just talking. I mean, she's just being nasty, rude. So later that evening, I'm getting ready to get on stage to talk, and she's in the audience. She's in the front row. And I get on stage, and she's like, "Well, I thought that Joe guy was going to be up here." And I said, "I am the Joe guy." She said,
Yeah.
"No, I met Joe earlier. He was out by the car working." I said, "That was me." I said, "You should never judge a book by its cover," because
Yeah.
I'm in a 3-piece suit at this point. I'm decked out. I got screens going. I'm in the middle of a series. And she was just, and I'm thinking, you just never know. And I tell this to people all the time, you never know who you're talking to, ever.
No. And people do that with me all the time. You know, I've got tattoos and shave half my head and all this stuff, and they automatically assume that I'm just like some
You
white
know,
trash,
when I was young,
unintelligent
I was when
person.
I was in the Navy, I was guilty about giving people with tattoos shit. I gotta be honest about it. But now I got lots of friends that have tattoos, so it's a different world for me. But
In ancient times, only royalty was allowed to have
yeah.
tattoos.
And you know what was funny? I was gonna get one when I was in the Navy because I had one all picked out that I really liked. I was really shit faced one night, and I got to thinking. I said, "Joe, you really gonna like this? Is your girlfriend gonna like this? Are you gonna like this when you're 40?" Or I'm thinking, "Oh shit!" Then I got to thinking about it. And I chickened out. I was like, "No, no, 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 this ain't happening. This ain't happening." And it's a good thing too, because honestly, today I'd hate it. I really would. I wouldn't hate it because it was a tat. I just hate it because of what it represented at the time, which was stupidity on my part. That would be about the best way of saying that. But you know, all my friends, I got beaten. That's like, what you doing, babe? No, there's no cat. Why you hear a cat? It must be outside. And I mean, that damn cat didn't come back. We had a kitten running around somewhere straight. We ain't been able to find. Um, all of it's strange, and I tell people, oh, just
Whoa, I
don't
just heard it's
judge
in your
people.
wall.
It might be in my wall, and no telling where it is. But I hear it was outside the other night, but I couldn't
In your
find
wall,
it.
or like it's stuck somewhere.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go track it down, or I won't be able to sleep
Do you
all
have like a
night.
chimney or something?
No, but underneath parts of the house
Oh,
underneath are
underneath
open.
that. Yes, yes. It's either underneath the house. It's stuck somewhere.
Yeah, hopefully your mom will go find it.
I think
And
it's a. I think it might be a family.
yeah, it might be because they were upstairs, and then they got all wet, and then they went underneath some lumber that was underneath the house downstairs. That's where they stayed. But then my business partner has been working on the house while I'm in the city. It say probably scared him. And they see him. They're going to tell you this before we go. He got a big cobra on his gut. It comes from here, all the way down to where. So we were working on this roof one day, and it's a porn store. Is what it is. And we're working on this roof, redoing the roof. And this guy comes up and sees him up there. And Sam comes down in the JLG, and the guy's staring at him. And Sam goes back up. Oh, I said, I can arrange a date for X amount. I said, I see you really like that snake on his belly, right? The guy turned red. I mean, fucking turned red like fire truck red. And I'm like, yeah, now I can arrange a date for him. And this dude was about. My son was laughing his ass. This dude was about to pass out. And I said, yeah. I said, he's just old redneck. He likes this kind of crazy stuff. He'll come on down and hook you up. This dude I thought he was going to faint. He had to go in the damn porn store so he wouldn't faint. Sam comes down off the roof and stuff. He said, you bastard, I can't believe you were trying to pimp me off, man. That's like, I said, I wasn't pimping you. I was pimping the snake, man. I was pimping the snake. He's like, oh, he's got a great cobra. I don't know who did it, but they did a great job on it. And I got some friends that got some really nice work. I got some friends that, yeah, it's questionable, but it goes back and forth. And,
Well, usually they, well, I know with mine anyways, I got them, I didn't know it at the time when I was getting them when I was younger, but I got them to remember something. So a lot of times it has something to do with your ancestry or
yeah,
past
well, that's a good
lives or
idea.
whatever. And that's why I think they were forbidden from anything but royalty back in the day because they did help you remember. And of course, people can get like runes and all kinds of stuff. I mean, you could essentially have
Yeah.
like create a portal on your body if you had the right tattoo, but
Uh,
you have to be careful with
I
that
always I
too.
always tell people be sure you're getting what you think you're getting when you. I say go read the alphabet and make sure it's what you think it is.
But even then, just because we think that all of our spelling and language is correct in this time, like I said, might have been something that was relevant, misspelled however many years ago,
Well, I
or
named
in
one of
another language.
yes. Well, I named one of my cats Bok Choy because it sounded cool. I used to call him Bok Choy all the time. If y'all don't know what Bok Choy is, people, it's cabbage. That's what it is. It's cabbage. Notice I had this whole thing of what it meant, and then one day I don't know where I was, and I looked it up, and I'm like, cabbage? What? Someone to kill a cat now? The cat gotta go, man. The cat gotta go. But I know we got to get out of here because it's already 10:30. But I had a blast. I'll let you take us out. I ain't even gonna play no promos. I'll do that tomorrow, man.
Yes, it is always a pleasure, Joe. I was excited that you agreed to come on since I had my cancellation and we haven't, the last time I was on your show, I was in the middle of a really bad storm and of
Mm,
course like my computer glitch and hasn't been doing that lately. So knock on wood.
that's
Now I
good.
might
Yes,
start.
don't be bragging. It should be flowing up next day. I've had a lot of weird
Uh,
electronic stuff happen lately.
yeah,
So.
Um, but I would be. I've got some now. I've got all these ideas. I want to research with you again, like every
Oh
time
yes,
this
and
happens.
then I'll get
So,
you on. Yeah, well, think of some stuff because I got to talk with Carmen. I'll get you on my show in a couple of weeks. Matter of fact, we can do some flip flopping for a few weeks and get some weird stuff going. And
well,
then,
and in August, I'm going to be on the Outer Realm and actually
ooh,
tell a
the
story of part of
scary
my
show.
book that's never been. I've never told anyone
That's
before.
the
So.
scary show, people. Them hosts are mean.
But then just think, you'll get the three of us together,
I know, which is
and
even scarier. At least
right.
we won't have three redheads this time, though. Last time they had what's her name when there was three redheads. I said, okay, we got to get this redhead shit under
I don't know.
control, man.
Maybe I'll have to talk Amelia into dyeing her hair or something now.
She was me and her husband talked her into dyeing it black. She looks good with dark hair. Well, it wasn't that. They kept bringing on these redheaded hosts and it was screwing with me. I'm like, okay, it's just three at a time is just too much. It's just and it was three different shades, so it was really screwy. And
I
Michelle's got that really, really bright hair. So it was
I had two friends in three friends in Denver actually when I lived there. Two were twins. They were redheads, identical twin sisters, and then my other friend was a redhead. And we would all hang out together. And when we would walk in a room, people would act like the place was going to blow up or something. Like
yeah, because three redheads in one place it might
it
blow
was
up.
four,
Jesus Christ.
four, and two were
That's even
identical
worse, man.
twins.
But that's even worse. That's gonna kill you. We out of here, people. We see. Well, she'll see you next Monday. I'll see you
Yes.
Wednesday. I don't even know who's coming on this Wednesday. I have to check with Carmen. And before anybody asks, yes, we're still. I've got three more Writers of the Futures to do, and then we're done with Writers of the Future, and we're back to. Well, actually, it'll probably be alien abduction stuff for the rest of the year. So, ooh, and you know what? We're only how many days from Halloween? Dun dun dun. Yeah, I know we're closer.
I'm so
That's
excited.
right. We're in the middle of July. We're halfway. Well, we're more than halfway there now. We're like 2 months out. But we got to go. Tell everybody bye so we can get out of here.
Yes, thank you for listening. Thank Carnation as well. I almost forgot about that. Goodness.
Yes, which is in my
Um,
coffee.
and have a good week, everyone. Be safe. And obviously, follow up on our website for all of the upcoming events. There's a lot of exciting things happening. We'll
And
see everyone next week.
yes, don't get no vampires pregnant either. I'm just saying.
What?